Coming up from San Bruno Avenue, east side of El Camino, they should have adequate striping in those crosswalks just like anywhere else in San Bruno. Period. Safety for all, right? Posey Parade, was it $92,000 did it cost the city? Is that correct?
The final numbers aren't concluded, but it was up.
But the ideas of all the people that are talking about it, the idea was maybe next year we could probably have like Posey at the park, since it's shrinking, things are changing. Not knocking it, but try to make it more creative and dropping down the fees, because San Bruno, we're not doing too well. Budget-wise, money. Maybe you could, shut down the park like you do some other, some of the things that you do, and couple hours of a Posey Parade at the park and trim it down. Treat it like you would if you had your own checkbook and you're running it like your own business. It kind of makes sense. And then the cable company, everybody's asking about where are they heading, what's going on. It's not the citizens or the cable company. It was years ago from previous city managers not handling it right and not working forward, putting that money back into that facility, correct? Well, how much more time do I have?
3 minutes is expired.
It's expired? Well,
If you can summarize whatever else you may have.
well, the cable company, it's not the cable company, the employees, it's how it was run throughout the years and did not put that money back into that cable company like it should have. Now you guys are at a, standstill, and everybody's wondering, like, where are we going, where are we heading, and where's the money coming from? That's about it.
And thank you for your comments, and when I go home, I'll look, but I thought I saw this afternoon on San Bruno Avenue somewhere they were painting, but I want to be specific before I commit, but.
All right, thank you very
We'll have
much.
to
huh?
make it back.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Our next in-person speaker is Pat.
Hi, good evening. I'm just going to make this very quick. I'm just kind of curious. I found out, a couple of months ago that apparently there's 2 parcels of land in San Bruno, because my husband and I have been living here 38 years. And the thing is that at the Crestmore 300 Piedmont Avenue, and also 2101 Sneef Lane, apparently the city supposedly sold the land to Summerhill and another company to build new homes in San Bruno. And I'm just kind of curious to see what's going on and how the people qualify for below market housing, and I think called moderate, and little things like that. I'm just kind of curious.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments. What we can do is, if the city clerk has your information or one of the directors can, and I'm getting the acknowledgement that yes, can talk to you right after your comments are concluded.
Okay. This is the first time I'm doing that. Do I go back to my desk, or I'm not?
You can go right back and somebody will come over to you.
Oh, sounds good.
How's
Thank
that?
you. Okay.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers on Zoom? Please.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay. Hi, this is Sedana and Josh at Twice as Nice. And then I wanted to start by saying that the city government and organizations have often asked the community and business owners in San Bruno what our wants and needs are. And it gives us hope that perhaps change is possible. One example would be during the San Bruno Community Foundation Listening Campaign 2.0 back in May of 2021. One of the questions on the survey was, what do you see as the most critical need in San Bruno at this time? And the #1 answer on community needs was downtown San Bruno upgrades and beautification, which included planting trees, landscaping, welcome signs, public art, lights, fixing and paving the streets, just to name a few. Fast forward to today, and requests for the same improvements to downtown remain the same. In the 8 years we've been in business on the Ave, the only improvements we've seen are trash cans. And the only annual event like the Posey Parade and last year's Community Day, which both did not happen this year for us as well. We are hoping that plans for Centennial Park come to fruition so we can host more events there. What we need is a more vibrant downtown with greenery, trees, better lighting, and most of all, events. Events that will help increase foot traffic and engagement within downtown. We see all the beautiful renovations you guys are making with the parks up top and the Aquatic Center, and we think they're great. But the lack of attention given to downtown's beautification and events has us business owners and the core community feeling frustrated and most of all ignored. We need you to fit us into downtown. We need you to fit downtown's improvements into the city budget and make us a priority. Our small businesses depend on it. Our livelihood depend on it. So your vote matters when it has to do with downtown. I just want to thank you for your time, City Council. Mayor Medina, thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. And if I can get somebody to see Pat that had spoken in the back of the room, please. Thank you. If you, and next speaker, please.
Good evening. I'd like to bring to the attention of the citizens, if they aren't already aware of it, but on Tuesday nights, there's food trucks over at Tanforan, and there's a lot of really good food there. So if you're interested in eating good food, I suggest you try it out. The second thing is, this is not widely been publicized, but AB 645 is being proposed to put speeding cameras out on the freeways in San Francisco area as one of the areas to do that. And I'd like all of our citizens to get a hold of Diane Papan, who's our assembly person, and tell her to vote no on that. And the last thing I have is on July the 3rd, the Daily Journal posted a pretty good article about all of the Mills project, or the Mills Park project, and several other housing projects that are being stalled now because of the economic issues that are going on. And I think that the City Council should agendize this item so that we can find out what the status of the projects are going to be in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other speakers, please? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, City Council and Mayor Medina. This is Jason and Gemily Texan representing Catch 22 Salon and Boutique. I just wanted to echo what Sedana and Josh had shared around putting some additional focus on downtown San Bruno. If you guys are aware, it's been quite some time since the cityscape plan that was created back in either 2018 or 2019. I don't remember. Apologies for that. When it was published. But for us as small business owners and residents of the city of San Bruno, we would like to note that feel that the downtown has been neglected. I think there's a lot of opportunity to put some investment into the downtown for beautification and attract residents of San Bruno. It's well known that, and just amongst the business owners, that residents do not frequent the downtown, nor do they even know or are aware that there are businesses downtown, newer businesses downtown that they could visit. With Tanforan at some point being redeveloped and changing, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen, I think it's a great opportunity to, again, focus on revitalizing downtown so we can attract more of our residents as well as residents from surrounding cities. If you look at San Bruno downtown, we in the peninsula, or for the Bay Area for that matter, ours is quite dated. And I'm not looking at Burlingame as an example, but if you can see downtown Burlingame, the revitalization and how vibrant that downtown is something that we can strive to become. And I understand it's Rome wasn't built in a day, but we'd love to see some funding and action taken and see that beautification project come to fruition and not fall, towards the bottom of the pile. I understand there's a lot of issues that we have to deal with as a community and as a city, but I just want to put that on notice.
Thank you very much for your remarks and comments. Okay, thank you all for your comments and your thoughts. Next, we'll move on to item number 5, announcements and presentations. First, National Night Out 2023 is on Tuesday, August the 1st, which is next month, right around the corner. National Night Out is an annual community building campaigning that promotes police, community partnerships, and neighborhood camaraderie to make our neighborhoods safer and more caring places to live. For more information on National Night Out, visit their website at natw.org. If you are interested in hosting an event in your neighborhood for National Night Out, please contact Officer Garrison Sexson by July 28th And the phone number is area code 650-616-7100. That's 650-616-7100. Next item, item B. Each Friday night in August, enjoy good music and fun company at the Summer Concert Series. Concerts start at 6 p.m. They'll be near the tennis courts in San Bruno City Park. And I wanted to add one, and that is that we have the Crestmore Multi-Use Fields Master Plan, asking for folks to join us. Join us for the Crestmore Multi-Field Master Plan upcoming community workshop, which is the second one, is scheduled for August the 7th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the San Bruno Senior Center right here. This workshop is the next step in defining the future vision for a new public sports field facility on the former site of the Crestmore Peninsula High School, where a draft master plan will be presented. More information is available at sanbruno.ca.gov/Crestmore Fields. And again, that's August 7th, 6 to 8 here. Next, we'll move on to item C. Receive construction update on the new Recreation and Aquatic Center project. And we have Rod.
There you go. I'm doing this remotely, so hopefully you all can see and you can see the screen.
We can see the screen and we can hear you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I guess my camera is not working here somehow. Okay, yeah, again, good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Rod McRae. I'm the project manager. I'm here to provide you the update on the San Bruno Recreation Aquatic Center construction project. We typically have our agenda that starts with the project information, completed to date, a schedule update, provide you what's happening in the next 30 days, update on the adopted projects, and we'll talk about a little bit about change order and project budget update and project overview and outlook. Start with the project information update. As we know, we started in September 2021. Completion as reported in the contractor schedule is now towards the end of 2023, on December. Considering all the rain impact days and winter extended rain days during the winter to spring, that's all the days have been considered. We are now about 71% complete to the end of June. That's equivalent to what the contractor can bill us or invoice us to date. There's an EarthComp link that will provide you every 30 minutes photo of progress on the project. And the two photos below just provides you a comparison of what we had done the last time we reported to you from March, and now it's July. Just another look of the project from the EarthComp link, comparing the progress from March to July. As you can see now that only we got the indoor pool going, we got the outdoor pool almost done. You can see the bottom and the wall of the outdoor pool is pretty much poured, and we are now in the curing period for that. Just to talk about a little bit more of the building progress, natatorium, as I mentioned, the pool plumbing, shell, stairs, all done. The gutters all complete as well, and we completed some of the rooms, including the bathrooms of the CMU wall. We're working on the party rooms as well. That little tiny room in front next to the outdoor pool. The outdoor pool, as you can see, has been done. It's more than what's shown on the picture now. All that bottom is backfilled with concrete, as well as the wall has been shotcreted. We're now working on the external plumbing. Gymnasium is a little bit further along. We wrapped up the gymnasium with the exterior wall sheeting. That's the dense glass. We have applied some of the spray for waterproofing. Interior wall framing is done. Mechanical, electrical plumbing is 90% complete. Just a little bit of work to transition to the natatorium. All the mechanical roof curbs done. Roofing insulation is now in progress, as you can see in the photo. Just the overview from the top, looking at all the progress going on the project. As you can see, we also completed the creek repair and modification. We started the bridge work, digging on the abutments. We had done some subsoil work at the parking lot that allows us to get going on the PG&E conduits and trenching. And as I mentioned, a lot of work's happening in the building. The roof work is going on. The vapor barrier is going on. The outdoor pool piping next to the natatorium is happening. The outdoor pool shell has been poured. We're now curing it as we speak. The next slide is just give you a look of the outdoor from the outside, looking at the exterior wall, the dense glass and the spray. It's looking like a paint, but those are the waterproofing spray that we just put in. Some of the work in the roof has been completed, some framing. We poured the plat roof. We're doing the insulation. This is just a close-up look of what's happening in the roof. We also completed the coordination of solar PV placements. As you can see, this is now the configuration of solar PV panels. It'll be placed on a ballast-mounted style. It'll be hold down masonry block against the wind load, and there'll be anchors to hold it from against the seismic load. Natatorium, just to show you how we progressed immediately. The last time we reported to you about March, immediately April, as soon as we got the weather break, we got going on digging the pool, getting the plumbing done, getting all that rebar. Bottom pool, as you can see, has been poured, as well as the wall, as the stairs. This is further along down the outdoor pool. This is now also on the curing period. So that's a lot of work took place, as you can see as well. As soon as we got done digging for a little bit of areas in the indoor pool, we jumped outside and start digging outdoor pool and putting all the plumbing. Here's another shot of what we have done so far. All the plumbing work coming from the mechanical room towards the outdoor pool also being placed. You see all those pipings on picture number 1. We have done as I mentioned, we have done the bottom of the pool as well as the wall. This picture is not updated, but the wall of the outdoor pool is already been poured. Another update on the PG&E is, as you know, we have received the plans from them on May 16, 2023, thanks to the help of Mayor Rico on getting some push to PG&E. We completed our pre-construction meeting on June 8. Contractor is now in progress, getting all the trenches. You can see the photos on the bottom, getting all the conduits dug for the PG&E bolt that they requested for us to put in. They are now coming in the first week of August to inspect the trenches so we could backfill it. As you can see in the layout on the upper left photos or picture, see graphically the red line is PG&E line, and there's a bolt in between that we have to install. After we install all those utilities and we got all that done, we're now working on this red line, which is PG&E. And some of the work that we have to do is transformer pad and the retaining wall that goes next to it. So that's all ongoing with no issue at this time. So we're moving forward. As I mentioned, creek repair modification has been done. Just a little bit of background, as you know, this is what it looks like before the storm up above the top photo. This is the second photo is the storm damaged look of the creek. And the bottom photo is the completed portion. It looks like more blended rock has been placed. In order to meet the environmental requirements, we had to consult with our biologists, hydraulics engineer, and hydrogeomorphologists to help us basically arrange all the rocks, provide us a specification for the better rocks coming out of the pipe, and provide us slope protection configuration to control the flow and place it at the right place, because we have a limited time to install it from June 15th to October 15th. So all that work has been done. We are now ready to complete our landscaping work beginning next month. Schedule update. As you can see up above, the above bar showing basically the impact, rain impacted days. As you know, the rain extended all the way, almost used up the springtime. But however, as soon as we got a break on the weather, we proceeded and made some progress. But as a result, we have some time extension that puts our completion towards December or end of the year. But we continue to progress. On the site work, we'll continue to progress on the pool. Building is ongoing. A lot of things is happening. The creek work has been completed. We're now ready to do all landscaping. Strictly alignment is done. We just need to top lip the paving and final delineation. We want to coordinate that with the parking lot. So when we start paving the parking lot, and that means we could be pretty much done with all the heavy construction, we could start putting some shiny asphalt and without getting damaged again. So Crystal Spring Road water has been done. The trench has been restored, so that's done. So the contractor is doing a great job and working with us well, and they are committed to get it done. They are providing additional manpower, extended hours to work 10 hours a day on the pool. Some of the critical activities that they can be efficient. They're considering working on Saturday to pick up more time. So that's what's going on with between us and the contractor. Public outreach. We continue to update our website. We use our portable changeable message board to inform the public of any road closure. Detour signs has always been in place. We have communication with Google Navigation in case that there is a prolonged closure that they need to know. Always our field contact numbers is available on the project sign, so we're always receiving calls and emails, and we always address them as we get them. And we have daily representative on site as well in the trailer. Just as announcement, City Parkway daytime closure will be occurring again as we start working on the landscaping of the park beginning next month. What's happening in the next 30 days? As you can see, these are some of the focus we have. We got to finish our exterior wall, waterproofing, roofing insulation has to be done. We got to complete all the decking for the indoor pool, party room, interior wall sheeting has to get going. That's going to be happening the next 30 days. Off-site work will keep focused on getting the bridge done, some of the bio as well, complete the outdoor pool as well, and PG&E. So we hope to get some good progress with PG&E work, and so we could complete our bioswale and irrigation on the creek as well, and get the bridge done. Some of the adopted project updates, as this is the traffic signal, the City Parkway and Crystal Spring. As I reported last time, we are working on the design. We completed the design. We have to advance the order of the signal pole. The signal pole is 16 weeks to get him. So the bid is advertised with city furnace signal pole. So hopefully by the time we get the project awarded and get it ready to construction, the signal poles will be on site for them to install. So we even acquired the anchor bolts that the contractor can install. When they show up on the job, they could start installing the foundation and put in the anchor bolt right away while waiting for the signal pole if it comes later. So that's what we have, and the target is to get the traffic signal completed by end of the year as well. Other projects, the Beckner Shelter Road projects. There's 3 projects. Basically, we are prioritizing the repaving of the parking lot and striping, and we have the ADA bridge to upgrade, and also we put the ADA pathway from the picnic area number 14 all the way to the end of that parking lot. So we have performed our survey. We have done some of the design for the repaving. We are reviewing them, and hopefully we can get that design completed next month, get a price quote, and get the construction going by October or earlier. And so hopefully we get that parking lot paved together with the city parkway as well. ADA bridge will continue with our process with design. The bridge may not get done this year because of the permitting conditions. So we'll see about that. We're still waiting for that. But some of the work might be done sooner, especially the pathway that leads to the bridge. And the picnic area 14 ADA path will come a little later than that. Change order report, we have approved 2.7 million, and we have paid 2.5 million to date. That's what's completed. We spent about 39% of that on the unforeseen condition or unknown condition, mostly contaminated soil. We spent about $1 million worth of contaminated soil to dispose due to petroleum and pesticide. There's 43% of that is discrepancy and resolution. That's basically coming from the RFI. As we piece together the project, there are some changes that has to be implemented from constructability, maintainability, anything that has to meet the code requirements, things like that. So changes has to be implemented, and that's what is that for. Public safety, mainly some of the additional sidewalk work, tree removal that we have to pay earlier, and some owner requests, that some changes that we have to make for the owner's request. Project budget update. We're still working on within the project budget of $62,290,228. We spent about $43,228,662 to date. The budget is divided into 3 segments. As you can see, 3 columns here. We have the soft cost, the construction cost, the project contingency. The soft cost includes all the items listed on the left bottom corner, from design, environmental, project management, testing, and a lot of parking lot project as well. The traffic signal project is included in this, and the soft cost and so forth. The green is the balance. The orange is expenses during construction, and the blue is expenses before construction begins. So we have spent 70%, or we are on the construction cost, and we are 55% on the project contingency. We still have about 44% left in our contingency, which is a good number to have moving forward without, if there is no issue that we don't know that's coming. So. Overview on and outlook about the project. As we talked about contingency, we're about 55% complete. We have 44% left to go. It's basically, we have about $12 million worth of work to finish from July on up. That includes all the pool, all the landscaping, all the interior work, and things like that. So there'll be a lot of trades that's coming in to get this get the project completed. We're about 71% complete. As you can see, the story of this project begins with extended spring weather or extended rain days that goes through the spring. But we're able to start the pool right away as soon as we had a break. The indoor pool got done, the outdoor pool is going, while doing all those activities during summer. We got the PG&E as well going. So I highlighted some of these activities that we're monitoring closely, and all the activities that are affecting that activities. And it's important to get the PG&E power, you get the pool completed, we get them all tested, especially the elevator that would dictate some of our occupancy requirement. It's important to get that done as well. And We hope to get that sometime in fall to late fall, and we're looking to get all the commissioning done by towards December, and hopefully from there we could start getting some occupancy and city staff training and planning for the dedication towards the winter time. Contractor is working hard, working with us, working well with us. All the teams are positive, trying to work together in getting all the challenges overcome. There are some challenges that the contractors will be out of the contractor's control, but like material supply, delivery dates, subcontractors, manpower, some of those things, the contractor have to adjust on their schedule and make changes to avoid any of those unforeseen and unavoidable conditions that could affect schedule. So far, the team has done a great job doing that and preventing some of those things to affect the schedule, except the weather impact. That's and that's what the contractor's trying to do, and add more manpower to it and increase production. We all have a common goal to get it down to a completion by December or sooner if we can. There are things that contractors not in control, or us, we can't control. So, but other than that, I think we're proceeding. We're making really good progress, and it's exciting to see the light at the end of the tunnel on this project, and we hope to deliver this to the city of San Bruno. And that will be the end of our presentation, or my presentation, and thank you for your time. I'm open for question.
Thank you very much for the update and the presentation, Rod. Are there any questions from colleagues at this time? Councilmember Medina, and then Vice Mayor Hamilton, please.
Great. Thank you, Rod. With this large of a project, it's really exciting, and I know our community is like really looking forward to it. A couple questions. One regarding the rain delay, or the with that a tremendous amount of rain, it's understandable that there will be some type of delay, and of course, it's nice to hear that the contractors trying their best to figure out how to make up that time and to increase the production. With that said, are these extended work hours being done at the contractor's option, or is the contractor being directed to increase production?
No, this is being done at the contractor's dime. This is on their time. They have taken their own manpower and money to some.
I think with the video, it's probably
Time
being
themselves.
delayed.
No, it's not on the city. We're not paying for it.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that. Your answer was a little choppy, but I think we got the gist of it.
Sorry.
I think when you turned on the video, it might have been delaying that up. Nonetheless, okay. I had a question regarding the creek and the storm modifications. There was an incredible historical amount of rain. For these modifications, is that an additional cost, or how is that being addressed?
Some of the damage, like the consultant fees that needed, that's being part of a contingency. Some of this that's beyond what the contractor can control, that's the city has to pay. That's how being addressed.
Okay, and I do want to stress that having to have the construction and the rack being completed in December would be great, but not at the expense of rushing and the work not being done satisfactorily. So I just wanted to commend everyone for what has been done so far, but also stress that for a project of this size and with the delays that we had unforeseen with the rain, that I think our community would understand that it would be great for it to be a Christmas present, or if not sooner, but that we've been waiting this long, and waiting a little bit longer is understandable. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Hi, and thank you for the presentation, and thanks to the team for getting us this far. As you said, it is exciting to see the light at the end of the tunnel here, and getting this project completed. So we're all very excited about that. I just wanted to. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I just want to confirm. Obviously, the fences that are up around on the building side of City Park Way are going to remain up until the building is ready to go. Based on the schedule update, it sounds like the fences that are on the other side of City Park Way in the park area around the creek, sounds like those are going to stay up well into Q4. Is that accurate?
Not necessarily. I think the plan is to get going there in August, put in all our irrigation, and start planting right away. So we would like to get that established before October 15th, so before the rain start coming. Really, that's the goal. So hopefully we start seeing plants go down September, and we will probably keep some lower fence to protect the plants that we planted instead of the big fences. So that's probably what will happen.
Okay, so you'll see that we probably around mid-October, if all goes to plan. Okay.
That's correct. Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Is there any members of the public that have their hand up there who'd like to speak on this item or ask a question?
Thank you. The briefer glossed over this really quickly, but it just stuck out in my mind. He said he removed $1 million worth of petroleum and pesticide contaminated soil. My question is, how did it get there, and how long has it been there? And what about the rest of the park? Is it safe? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Let's see if we have all the speakers at first. Any other speakers? Thank you. Rod, can you address that question if you're able?
Sure, yes. So we have we tested the whole site. So basically all the surplus soil that is going to be exposed to the public has been removed and disposed. So there will be no contaminated soil that will be left the public will be exposed.
I think the other question might have been, how long has it been there? How did it get there? Well, and the RAC itself, or the recreations, the Veterans Memorial Center, I know, was built back in the mid-50s, and so was the pool. But was there any information you can give on that second part of his question?
I'm not sure where all that came from, but I think it's based, like I said, the history of the building, how it was used in the past might have contributed. Them are pesticide related. Petroleum is based, I don't know, it was a military base before or something that was sitting there for a long time that created all those contamination.
Okay, thank you, Ron. With that, I want to thank you very much for giving us this presentation and update as you are to the other bodies. And so we thank you for your time and wish you a good evening.
Thank you.
Now,
Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Salazar.
I was wondering, would it be feasible to have an analysis done of the soil elsewhere in the park, since we don't really know the origin of it and we know that it was pretty severely contaminated, just to have an understanding of what else is out there? And I mean, I don't know that we can remediate it all, but we could at least make sure we don't disturb it too much. And
certainly. I think the short answer is yes. This is the first time learning about the park having contaminated soil, so we will certainly look into that. I made a note here before you asked the question, Councilmember Salazar, so absolutely.
Thank you, City Manager. Again, thank you, Rod. And next, we'll move on to item D, receive presentation of the 4th of July fireworks public safety operation result. And we will first hear from our police chief, and then we will hear from our fire chief. Chief Johansson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public who are tuning in. My name is Ryan Johansson, your chief of police, and I am joined this evening by Ari DeLay, our fire chief. We'll be presenting some details on our 4th of July operations. specific to fireworks enforcement and fire's responses to emergencies. In terms of background, just important to note, as we do every year, that the 4th of July presents a number of public safety challenges for both police and fire. The use of illegal fireworks before, during, and after the 4th of July creates a number of problems for the community as well. Noise is the least of those problems. There are obviously notable impacts to animals, as many of us experience every year around the 4th. Major impacts to folks with PTSI and PTSD. And then, of course, the risk of injury associated with using especially not safe and sane fireworks. Also, of course, significant fire hazards, as I'm sure the fire chief will speak to this evening. And the police every year deal with a number of large and unruly gatherings that are often populated by increased alcohol use that comes with the holiday. So we engage in some expansive education, prevention, and enforcement operations every single year in an effort to minimize the impacts that the holiday and these activities have on the community. And these efforts by both police and fire, as well you'll hear tonight on behalf of Parks and Public Works, are funded by the Safe and Sane fireworks sales in San Bruno. Obviously, none of this, unfortunately, stops what is rampant use of illegal fireworks every year on and around the 4th of July. And I would argue that this is, in fact, not stoppable through any measure of enforcement or prevention efforts. It is only reducible. And as I will highlight again this evening, we are not the only city that experiences this problem, despite being one of only 2 in the county with safe and sane fireworks. So other cities do have these challenges. Here are some numbers on the average number of fireworks-related calls for service that other police departments experience on the 4th of July. San Mateo is busy at 122 such calls, East Palo Alto at 131, South San Francisco at 188, Daly City at about 95. And again, it's important to note that none of these cities allow safe and sane fireworks. And as a result, none of these cities have a funding source for large-scale enforcement like we see here in San Bruno. Generally, these cities will not respond to fireworks complaints. Also important for the community here to understand that the fact that the San Bruno Police Department and Fire Department do respond to fireworks complaints throughout the 4th of July and in advance of and after. This is not something that most of these other cities do, largely because they do not have the funding source for targeted enforcement. Pacifica is the one other city with safe and sane fireworks, as you know, and they do an average of 104 fireworks-related calls per year. Pacifica does have enforcement efforts that are very similar to that of San Bruno's. This year, they went back to bringing in outside agencies in an effort to shore up some of that enforcement. I have not yet connected with the new police chief there to discuss how that went. As you know, so to talk a little bit about what we do in advance of the 4th of July in the way of operations, first of all, early in June, we order all police department personnel to work the 4th of July. This means all vacation requests are canceled, any other time off requests are canceled. Everyone at the police department has to work every year on the 4th of July. We begin working with the fire department to create a robust incident action plan or an operations plan. This is in an effort to make sure we learn from prior years and are putting together the best possible enforcement and education posture we can. Fire and police get together every year using internal resources and develop a new PSA, or a public service announcement. That is then disseminated via a variety of social media platforms as well as cable TV in an effort to begin educating the public about what we know is coming every year and what the penalties are for using illegal fireworks or using safe and sane fireworks in an illegal manner. We also post fireworks safety postcards are sent out to all residents. We conduct safety meetings with all of the fireworks booth operators. We post educational flyers that go with every single safe and sane fireworks sale throughout the city, provide informational warning notices at all city facilities, and have advanced police contact with known prior violation locations. So we do have some residences that tend to be problems year over year with the use of illegal fireworks, and in advance we will send police officers out to make contact with those residents in an effort to gain compliance in advance. We also do a lot of using data in order to focus our resource deployment. We have a lot of data now on the 4th of July. We've been doing this for a number of years. And while the enforcement posture has changed somewhat over the years, we can now use that data to at least take an educated approach to how we deploy our minimal resources to be effective on the 4th of July. And I think you'll see as I, in some subsequent slides, provide some data that I think that is boring out some success. And then we do dedicated enforcement details prior to the 4th. As any resident will tell you, the illegal fireworks don't start on the 4th of July. In fact, I think anecdotally, many would say that it seems to start earlier every year and go later every year. And so every year we attempt to adjust to that, and we actually have proactive enforcement, dedicated officers that are just working fireworks enforcement out on the street for weeks prior to the 4th of July and even for a few days after the 4th of July. On the 4th of July itself, as I mentioned earlier, all San Bruno Police Department personnel are ordered to work. What this meant this year is 55 staff members. These are officers, dispatchers, clerks, and community service officers, 40 of them sworn and 15 of them non-sworn. Many of these folks worked 16 consecutive hours in order to ensure that we can staff the streets, because the normal calls for service, unfortunately, do not stop on the 4th of July. So manning all of the beats and responding to the normal calls we would go to on any other day, in addition to having enough officers there for adequate enforcement throughout the busy evening hours, requires a tremendous amount of overtime from many of those staff members. All the beats are staffed as usual, plus those dedicated enforcement details. We will use and did use this year both marked and unmarked police units, uniformed and ununiformed or plainclothes personnel. We do undercover surveillance, and this year we made use of our drones or unmanned aircraft systems as well. There is also dedicated fire department staff, dedicated parks department staff, and dedicated public works department staff that have to come in and work the holiday every year in order to make the effort to make it as safe as we possibly can for all the residents here in San Bruno. Calls for service this year, we had 255 calls for service on the 4th of July. This includes fireworks and non-fireworks related, by the way. That's about 22 fewer than last year, not a terribly significant discrepancy. The peak activity period, once again, was from about 8:30 in the evening to about 11:15. That's been pretty standard over the last few years. It does tend to expand when the 4th of July falls on a weekend, but when we're fortunate enough for it to fall on a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, then we tend to have this peak period that's a bit condensed. 144 of those calls for service were directly fireworks related on the 4th of July. That is about 35 fewer than last year. Again, not a marked difference, but nonetheless a bit of a reduction. And again, most of the reports we're receiving from the public are really quite vague and marginally workable for the police department. I know I spoke about this in our presentation in advance of the 4th of July, but just to note that we are well aware of the fact that there are illegal fireworks occurring virtually everywhere in the city on the 4th of July, and calling in to report a general vicinity they're occurring in, or even a fairly specific vicinity without real specific details as to who is using the illegal fireworks, are really not terribly workable for us as a police department. In fact, the efforts we're engaging in with unmarked and undercover units sometimes take some time to develop for us to identify a suspect and make an arrest, and too many calls for service will tend to pull us away from those efforts. So to be perfectly frank, we do not respond to calls for service that are vague and that are not particularly workable from a suspect identity standpoint, but we do make an effort to respond to all calls for service that are otherwise workable. It's important to note here as well, I've spoken on this in past years, but that officers do have to on-view or directly witness a violation in order to issue one of our administrative citations or to make an arrest. This is not something where you can call in and say, I saw that person and they were doing the following, and then the police can take action. Law actually requires a direct observation of the violation. As of now, in accordance with case law, video evidence does not remove that requirement. So even showing an officer, here I have my neighbor on video shooting off illegal fireworks, would not really help us to meet the on-view requirement. There are some exceptions there, but those merit a greater discussion than we can really have here in this meeting. Observationally, I will tell you, after working 24th of Julys here, that illegal fireworks was a bit lighter this year than in most years. We are noticing that period of heavy activity condensing year over year. And while I'm sure it's no consolation to residents who suffered through a 4th of July based on their animals or other conditions, as I mentioned earlier, nonetheless, it does appear to get lighter year over year of late. Again, weekends will always produce a bit of a spike, but we had notably fewer unruly gatherings and problems with alcohol and parties this year, which is always welcomed by the police department. But nonetheless, we engage in a great deal of enforcement. The way enforcement works is that we do not make a physical arrest. We issue a $1,000 administrative citation. This is an action that was taken by the city a number of years ago because the penalties associated with the criminal arrest for fireworks violations were not proving to deter future behavior. And so the thought was that creating a more significant penalty to make sure that the true danger of illegal fireworks is being communicated to folks who are committing these violations would be adopted. And so we issue these $1,000 administrative citations. Again, the officer has to directly observe the violation. It's important to note that this can be quite dangerous for police officers for what really is quite a low-level offense. You think about taking in the totality of the circumstances and considering just how deep we want to get into making an arrest and issuing a citation for illegal fireworks. You will often have a very intoxicated violator. Many times they are running from the police upon attempted contact, fighting with the police upon attempted contact. And so we really have this constant scale that we are working on to weigh the importance of keeping the community safe and making these apprehensions and arrests with the fact that at the end of the day, it is an administrative violation that we are citing for, which can sometimes make us very much have to consider whether we chase the person who runs and how far we engage in making these arrests. But we make the best effort to arrest as many as is reasonable while still maintaining that safety. Again, the violators in these cases are cited. They're not physically arrested or taken to jail, and only the evidence that's in plain view can be seized by officers. So oftentimes we may know there are more illegal fireworks in the house. Fourth Amendment largely prevents us from simply walking into someone's home and taking those illegal fireworks, even if we're aware that they're present. I will tell you that resident-provided video can help to identify suspects, but it can't really replace that in-presence legal requirement. So for the community that's listening, we are interested in video. If it's good, high-quality video that helps to identify specific suspects or specific problem residences, even this late after the fact, we would appreciate that being provided to the police department so that we can do whatever is legally possible with it. At the very least, it can result in us going and making a contact and discouraging future behavior that's similar. Additionally, we do have a social gathering site or section that allows us to issue a citation to a person who is in control of a gathering. This is typically going to be the homeowner or the person that is leasing a home and allowing illegal fireworks to be used at that gathering. I think there's some conversation to be had about the possibility of shoring up that ordinance in the future. There are other cities that have a bit more strongly worded ordinances that provide a little bit more latitude in issuing those citations. Here, we essentially need to prove direct knowledge, and so the way we typically do that is if we have a repeat problem residence where we can't identify the specific suspect, we will go out, attempt to identify the person in control of that gathering, issue them a formal verbal warning, document that in our CAD or our RMS system, and if there's a subsequent violation, then we feel that they were well aware this was going on at their party and allowing it to continue. And in those cases, we will issue the homeowner a citation as opposed to necessarily needing to find the exact person who is lighting off the illegal fireworks. Enforcement data over the years, you can kind of take a look at the admin site levels here. This year we issued 26 administrative citations. This is the second most that we've ever issued in a given year. It indicates a great deal of effort by the police officers in getting out in what is really a very condensed period of time and attempting to apprehend violators. It's one more than we issued last year, the second most ever issued, and it's about 8 per hour during the peak period that we experience. So it's a lot of work for the officers to make that level of arrest, and I'm very proud of their efforts on the 4th of July. Of those 26 that were cited, 16 were San Bruno residents. And I always try to include some data on this because I think that there had previously been sort of this narrative that the problem in San Bruno was people who don't live in San Bruno coming to San Bruno because of safe and sane fireworks and then shooting off illegal fireworks. And it's very clear that that happens. It's also very clear that there are San Bruno residents who choose not to respect the law and to respect their neighbors as well. So this is both an internal and an external problem. We seized about 181 pounds of live illegal fireworks. We do not weigh the expended illegal fireworks that we seized, but there were hundreds of pounds of that as well. This is about 155 pounds more than the annual average. However, it's pretty consistent with what we've seen the last few years. The seizures are going up and up and up. In terms of a preliminary cost estimate, and again, these numbers are preliminary, but I will not go through them one at a time. You can see that this is a breakdown of essentially the costs that accrue with providing this level of safety and enforcement over the 4th of July. Notable here is that we look at a total of about $99,000, and that these costs are covered by fees collected from the booths from their safe and sane fireworks sales. So again, just sort of important to note that without that revenue source, if we wanted the same posture of enforcement, this would become a city expense, or if we would have to significantly reduce our enforcement posture and the level of effort we make to combat these problems. And again, cities without these sales do not have this funding source, and in checking with them, they do not conduct enforcement anywhere near what we do in San Bruno. So with that, I will pass it on to Chief DeLay, and he'll cover the fire side of this.
Great. Thanks, Chief Johansson.
Chief DeLay.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Ari DeLay, your fire chief. Thanks for having us here this evening. I'm going to go ahead and start, move on with the presentation. to click right through there. I'm going to get to my portion of the presentation. Sorry about that. Bear with me. I just want to make sure I don't pass it up. Just wanted to recap that for Chief Johansson. Sorry about that, folks. Okay. Just a brief review of the fire department's operation for the 4th of July holiday for San Bruno Fire Department. Much like the police department, we had additional staffing for that evening and the day of the 4th of July. Myself, as fire chief, we added one additional battalion chief that helps at the incident command post where we're in what we call unified command with the police department to be able to work on those enforcement and response efforts throughout the evening. We had all of our fire prevention staff on duty, which is a very important component of what we do at the fire department for enforcement and education piece. Our fire marshal and our 2 fire inspectors were there that evening as well. And then we staffed an extra unit. That extra unit is the Cal OES Type 6 engine that we have at the city of San Bruno, allows us to respond to small grass fires throughout our city. And we were able to staff that unit at the advanced life support level to have a paramedic on board as well that evening. Okay. So calls for service for the fire department for the evening. We handled approximately 26 calls for the 4th of July itself. That, again, very similar to police department, is a little bit less than we normally respond to on that day historically. Our peak activity period was very similar to the police's, those same types of hours. And of those calls, those 26 calls for the day, 3 of them were fireworks related. The next slide here is just to bring some context to the picture. These are our historic call volumes in the weeks leading up to the 4th of July. And these are actually a little bit lower than our normal call volume. In fact, you'll see that previous 3 weeks prior to the 4th of July, pretty steady, consistent call volume, about 100 calls a day is what we average. And then beginning on the 27th, we started getting fireworks-related calls. Most of those calls are very similar to police explosion-type calls, really, non-focused as far as their location. So there's not a lot that happens through those calls. But on the 4th of July, we did run 5 incidents that were fireworks-related in total. Illegal fireworks was, again, as the chief stated, very consistent with previous years. And in fact, the prior days prior to the 4th of July was actually a little bit lighter than in previous years. But we're able to use our focused education and prevention efforts to be able to kind of mitigate some of those things. And then it's important to know that weed abatement throughout the city, whether it's the Parks Department staff and our fire prevention staff working on weed abatements, it's a pretty heavy time for complaints. Citizens are very concerned, obviously, with the condition of weeds throughout the city. So we work pretty extensively dealing with those weeds complaints and having the property owners deal with them prior to the 4th of July. So it's a pretty extensive operation. And I'm happy to report that there was no civilian or firefighter injuries from the 4th of July, which is important because some of those, especially illegal fireworks, are very, very dangerous. And then the one thing to note, I think right after the 4th, the morning of the 5th, we did have 2 structure fires that were pretty significant. They had a significant impact on the residents that were affected. And one of those structure fires was directly caused by improper handling of fireworks outside the home. So pretty catastrophic fire to the family. They've actually been displaced from the residence. So we're going to be working this coming year on a focus for our public service announcement to really reinforce those efforts about proper storage and disposal of fireworks in the future. And with that, Chief Johansson and myself are available for any questions.
Thank you both for your presentation and the information that you've provided. And I want to say to both of you, I think I speak on behalf of the council, thank you very much to both of your departments. And again, Public Works and Parks and all the team that does this. All of us were there this year at the briefing. I think that was us giving our support and our appreciation for what the city, all departments, do during that time. I think you hit it very well as far as it's never going to be perfect, and we're never going to be able to say it was just a great time that everybody was happy. But what I will say in talking to other jurisdictions is that you are correct in what you said, is they don't have those resources in the call volume. I mean, there's one city in the south a couple years ago, they just basically had to draw a line as best they could with the resources they had and couldn't do anything. And I know it's not as easy as just to go out there and find it. But I think by the citations that are issued, and I think the reason you see it increase from past, because I remember the days where you had to bring them into the station and do the processing, which took an officer off the street, which took other resources to do that. And so by citing them on site has really helped to assist in trying to be out there on the street. So I think that was a great move. But before I turn it over to my colleagues for questions, I personally want to thank both of you and all of the staff of all of the departments for once again doing what you can to ensure and protect this community and its residents. So thank you. Colleagues, any questions? Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not really a question, but I just wanted to acknowledge the Beat One and the team, how they handled the July 4th situation. I was part of the ride along, especially, I don't know his title, but Officer Rocco, how he manages his team. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this? Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed your hand. I apologize. Councilmember Medina.
No worries. I don't like to turn the light on until I'm acknowledged. So, Mr. Mayor, you summarized a lot of what I, and also all the council was at the briefing. And it was very impressive. And the words that are spoken from our chiefs to the staff are really important. And they take this very seriously. I understand that as an observation that for some it was less fireworks, by observation, but for those people that live really close to them, they probably say it could be some of the worst ever. And it's amazing that the quality and the booms that are generated from these fireworks, I mean, they're pretty much professional grade. They look really pretty, but they're really disturbing to a number in our community. I wanted to clarify that of the two fires, one was fireworks related from the property owner?
That's correct.
Okay. So, yeah, the whole point of safe and sane and making sure it's a 5-gallon bucket and, making sure it's out, that's very, very critical. The other one, it wasn't?
The other fire, the cause is undetermined, and I don't think, honestly, we'll ever get to the root of the
Okay.
cause. It's still under investigation, but I don't think we're going to find a direct cause.
Fine, understandable. For those families, there are some GoFundMe pages started by the community, and I was wondering that perhaps there was a way that we could work with staff to go ahead and make that more of a general notice to our community. I've been in contact with those families, and they are working on getting, they are currently housed, but they're looking for months of being displaced. So thank you all for your hard work.
Thank you.
Councilmember Salazar.
Thank you. So, like everyone else said, I definitely appreciate all of the staff's work that night. It's really impressive to see everybody coming together that one night, and you really get an appreciation for, the amount of effort that goes into this. So definitely very appreciative for that. And I just wanted to especially thank Chief DeLay for allowing me to tag along with him for several hours that night. And I think I really have a new appreciation for the effort that goes into it. I think we covered probably every corner of the city, and we were just racing all over the place. And I got a chance to experience some of the technology that you've introduced firsthand, and so definitely appreciate that opportunity. And so thank you. Thank you all.
I would assume that that technology you probably found more interesting and were able to understand it than I would. And I don't know, we can ask after how he drove. But to both of you, seriously, and I appreciate and I hope the staff knows why all 5 of us were there, which was to give our support. And I appreciate being allowed to address the team and personally let them know again what it means and what they do. And so thank you both. And if you could pass it on to all the departments and staffs that were involved, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, with that, and there were no members of the public, I checked on that, and so we'll move on to consent calendar. All items are considered routine or implemented in an earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested. There will be a single public comment period for all items in this section unless a council member requests an item pulled for a separate vote. Are there any items, A through N, that council wants to pull for a separate vote? Seeing, hearing none, are there any council members that have a comment or a question on any of the items A through N? Councilmember Medina.
That would be M as in Medina.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All right, let's go to M as in Medina. Consider adoption of a resolution approving the newspaper racks and enclosure models and locations and determining the project is exempt under the California Environmental Quality Act. Councilmember Medina, and I had to comment on this too, so thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So first of all, I did submit a number of questions and a couple of them on this item. First, I wanted to acknowledge the thanks for the removal of a number of the abandoned news racks. They were definitely in disrepair and they didn't seem to be being used. And so having those removed is appreciated. I want to repeat the question, is to have staff just advise the public on the legal requirements of having when the city gets involved in providing the news racks and what are the options and the need to allow them to be on city streets. And then my overall view, I appreciate the detail that was put into the presentations and trying to get community input, but I'm thinking that the quantity of the news racks really isn't as needed, noting that the future of reading a newspaper is going away. I mean, I really appreciate it, but I think the majority of people now will be starting getting used to not having that newspaper. And so by reducing the racks, one, it reduces the cost of the project. And they're pretty expensive, and it's a little surprising, but pretty much everything that we do, that we look at, it's the cost of these, whether it's garbage cans, news racks, anything is just so expensive. So weighing the need of the number of news racks and the likelihood that in the future the consumer is not going to be consuming that product through the newspaper, and that if we could save some money, that I'm interested in consolidating, and instead of having the 5 locations, to look at having less news rack locations.
Director Lee, please.
Thank you. Through the mayor, Matt Lee, Public Works Director. I'm going to try to attempt to answer some of those questions. I think the first question was, what's the legal requirement for the city to provide newspaper racks? Per San Bruno Municipal Code 8.32.010, it states that the streets, sidewalks, and public rights-of-way are historically associated with the sale and distribution of newspapers and other publications, and that access to and use of those areas for such purposes is not to be denied except where such use unreasonably interferes with the use of these areas by pedestrians or traffic, or where such use presents a hazard to persons or property. Thus, the city is legally required to permit newspaper racks in a manner consistent with the ordinance and the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. The municipal code governs the permitting, design, placement standards, maintenance, abatement of violation, and amortization requirements. These regulations promote the public health, safety, and welfare of this and the aesthetics qualities of the city by controlling the placement, size, and construction and appearance of the newspaper racks. To further answer your question in terms of is it too many newspaper racks that we're installing or too few? You bring up a good point. That was a discussion that we had as part of our effort to identify how many newspaper racks we should have. As I previously explained in the municipal code, we cannot deny anybody newspaper rack placement. So as we were going through this process, that exact conversation that you were having was brought up, with the news media going to a different median and newspapers in general reducing and people looking to find their news elsewhere. What is the appropriate size? So what we did was we did an evaluation to determine what would be the appropriate size, understanding that we cannot deny newspaper racks. We looked at how many were out there currently, and we added 4 additional spaces in case any other newspaper vendors decide they want to come and register and install the racks. I understand the costs to install things are generally more expensive than people anticipate. But I would say that adding these additional newspaper racks to the hoteling of the newspaper racks doesn't add significant cost. The significant cost is the installation and the resizing of the enclosures. So what we were trying to do is to try to be as efficient as possible, to have a couple of newspaper racks available in case we have new vendors come in without having to add any more additional costs. And so we landed on 4. Four additional newspaper racks in 5 locations.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Director. So I just have a couple of questions. I know, based on the staff report, that the current permitted vendors that we're providing for, and then of course leaving excess capacity for any future vendors. There's Bay Classifieds, San Francisco Chronicle, San Mateo Daily Journal, and San Francisco Examiner. I know that the Chronicle and the Daily Journal put out papers, every day that they publish them. Do we see that? Are Bay Classifieds putting papers out there all the time, or is, even though they have the right to, are they actually?
That I'm not sure of, but we can check and get back to you on it.
And for the Examiner as well, because that's the thing too, is that I just want to make sure that as we're looking at this, that we're not necessarily, just because someone has put them out in the past, they could have stopped. And I want to make sure that we're checking that they, that they don't intend to continue. So that was one thing. Another one as well is just to try to address the cost a bit. Right now we have racks across the street from each other at 500 and 501 San Mateo Avenue. And I believe it's the same papers available on both sides of the street. I mean, would it make sense just to have it's not, I don't think it's a huge ask of folks to cross right there at the corner. The crosswalk is right there to across the street to pick up the paper. So I'm just wondering if maybe we can mitigate the cost a bit by eliminating one of the racks at one of those corners. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, we can look into that.
Councilmember Salazar?
Thank you. Matt, it looks like the bulk of the price for this particular project is in the installation, not necessarily for the racks themselves. And so is there a direct correlation to the number? And so say if we eliminate one, does that, is there a corresponding reduction in the cost, or are we going to incur a large cost for the installation?
So you're correct that there's a portion of the cost that's attributed to labor. There's a portion of the cost attributed to the newspaper racks, and there's also a portion of the cost attributed to the custom newspaper rack enclosures. So irregardless of the amount of newspaper racks that you are going to select, the installation is generally the same. The labor is generally going to be about the same. Maybe the material for the custom enclosure may shrink a little bit, but that's not a significant cost. It's the mobilization and the actual labor to do the installation of the devices, units.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I had some of the same questions. I want to go back in history and give a lesson here, being the most senior person up here. And I'll try to find a picture, but how this started to come about is if back then you went to Chili's and you looked at probably 15 different newspaper racks, and every agency had their own. And that's what I had brought up back then was it just doesn't look good, right? And everybody had their own situation, and whether it was still valid or not, as the vice mayor said, did they really still utilize it? So then we came together and it was like, okay, let's go forward. So you have to provide something. You can't say no. But then it was to be more uniformed and maintained. And so now we had things where they could be removed. But my still understanding is if a newspaper agency wants to put it on the public right-of-way, that's not okay. They can be called and said, you got to remove it. But now if they're setting it back onto the business owners, we'll consider area. Are they still allowed to do that? The example of the vice mayor is correct. It's on both sides of the street. But again, does that mean that that can't be stopped because it's on their easement area and it's not in the sidewalk, as an example? So the question is, can that be prohibited? So could across the street say, well, but that's on our side that we lease here. We lease that building, so we want that newspaper rack, even though it's across the street and a city provided newspaper rack. Can that, do we have no ability to stop that?
I'll have to look at the city ordinance and get back to you.
Okay. That's fair, and I think we have to think about what we once had is not what is really being utilized or occupied, and some of them had been occupied for something other than what it was intended. And so I'm kind of the same element of we're talking so many on, we have 3 on the 400 block and 2 on the 500 block and 2 on the 500 block, are right across the street from each other. So really, I'm trying to assess, too, the cost that is going into this, the need, and just being able to keep I'm trying to think of the best word, is to try to keep up on it so we don't allow it to get to such a situation where a rack should have been noticed, in my mind, a long time ago, and not have it allow it to be utilized for other than its intent. And so, anyway, I don't know if there's any other comments to that, or if that was just my food for thought.
Thank you. So I would say that, over the course of the past year, we've been working with code enforcement to remove any unused newspaper racks. So we have been going through that process to make sure.
$6,000+ for these racks and the enclosures and et cetera, correct?
The project budget in the CIP is $106,000.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So I guess my point of that is, okay. So San Mateo Avenue is receiving that, and to where they're spread out throughout the rest of our community, it is not. Okay. All right. Any other questions? And I forgot if I'd asked for any public comment on this.
People and the city manager, because I'm downtown early in the morning And I ran into Neil of Zero Turn, and we talked about the possibility of the racks, and he said, whatever you do, please request that they're ceramic coated. That's the easiest for him to clean. And I just want to say that if you're going to put in racks that aren't going to be used or bins, will they be locked until they can be used or somebody requests them so that they're not used for a purpose other than what they're intended for? And then personally, I think that the covers attract trash. And I want to know from the guys who are downtown early in the morning, how easy is it for them to be to get around them and get the trash and clean it up? I would much rather see that money used maybe for extra garbage can liners so that the city garbage can trade out liners to the garbage cans and sanitize in between. I just don't think that expense is enough bang for your buck at this time. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker. Thank you. Does, I know there were a few items there, but there was some, I noticed about the locking and that. Is there any comment to that it can be provided?
Yes, so as part of the newspaper racks, we're looking at potential locking and coin-operated racks, so to make sure that when they're not in use, they are closed and locked.
Go ahead, John.
So I'm just wondering, I'm sorry. I'm just wondering if it would make sense, because there were a few items that we brought up that the staff you want to go back to be able to address, and we appreciate that. I'm just wondering if it might make sense to table this one item. I don't want to give staff time to get those questions answered and then bring it back at a future meeting. I just wanted to throw that out there as a possibility.
City Manager?
It's certainly a possibility. We can answer some of the regulatory questions that you put forward. I don't know if it changes necessarily the design and the placement, but it's the council's call.
Because I mean, I certainly would like to see us, look at the possibility of maybe eliminating the two that are right across, one of the two that are right across the street from each other, that sort of thing. And there were other questions that were brought up that we needed to check into. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a
That is a possibility. We can bring this back on the August 22nd agenda if that's with those answers embedded in the staff report.
Any other, Councilman Medina?
That would be fine. I'm in support of some newspaper racks. I just questioning the quantity, and then the question about whether they're ceramic. Are these ceramic coated? Because Zero Turn Neil does the power washing. For the city. That's one of the things that the council has approved. So just wanted to see if staff could look into that.
Yeah, so as we were looking at newspaper racks and how to set them up, we've had conversations with Zero Turn. That's the contract that the Public Works Department has with them. And so we've been in conversation with them on what's the best available product, and we're trying to make sure it aligns with what's allowable in the municipal code.
We can certainly look into that. And I'm curious if the term is really powder coating versus, I don't know what ceramic coated is, what it would mean, but we'll find out. We'll make sure we get the most durable racks we can get, so.
So there was a suggestion, and City Attorney, I don't know if it can be just, but there was a suggestion by the Vice Mayor of maybe having this item come back on the August 22nd meeting, for clarity to some of the questions and the potential of looking from the ones that are at 500 and 501.
So I think, Mr. Mayor, I think you just want to have this item pulled from the consent calendar and then move forward on the consent calendar, and then you could just provide direction to staff to bring it back at a future meeting.
Okay, thank you for the clarity. I think that was abundantly clear. I think we've heard from everyone. We've gone through the system. So are there any? We're bringing it back to council.
All items under consent except for item M.
Second.
On the question, and that would be for staff to return back
Oh.
with some of the specifics that have been brought up during the discussion.
Sure. I'll amend my motion to also please request that staff bring item M back at the
Motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear unanimous vote, 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Now, we'll move on to public hearings. Director.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. For this agenda item, we will go through the objective, background, the extension itself, and the recommended action. The objective is to hold the public hearing and to consider adoption of a resolution to extend the interim authority for the master fee schedule to be in effect for the master fee schedule of fiscal year 23-24. For some background, this is based on an exhibit that is attached to the written staff report, which graphically shows what we're talking about here. Row 1 represents the council's action on June 13th of 2023, where on a unanimous vote, council adopted the master fee schedule, but the effective date of that would have been August 12th. So because that action would have resulted in the loss of revenue from July 1 to August 12th, on row 2, council adopted urgency resolution also on the unanimous vote to make the effective date of those of the fiscal year 23-24 fees start on July 1. As staff noted at that hearing, that urgency resolution will be effective for 30 days but can be extended. So that urgency resolution will carry through until the 27th. So that brings us to tonight's item, and that is the extension, which would be row 3, which is basically to close the gap between what the urgency resolution set forth and the effective date of August 12th, that at that point, the original action from row 1 is in effect. So the item before you tonight is to be the yellow arrow and to extend the interim authority to allow the updated fees to remain into effect up until the 12th of August. Just as with the urgency resolution, this action also needs a 4/5 vote. So the recommended action, again, is to hold the public hearing and to consider adoption of the resolution to extend the interim authority for the fiscal year 2023-24 fees to remain in effect until August 12th. And with that, available for any questions.
First, thank you for the presentation and the recap, and I also want to thank you for taking this on. As in your role, that's not something maybe that's normally done, but I appreciate you seeing this to this point. Thank you. Questions from colleagues on the presentation? Seeing, hearing none at this time, this is a public hearing. We'll open the public hearing and see if there are any questions or comments on this topic, please.
We have one remote hand raised. Cody? Cody, whenever you're ready, you may begin. Cody?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
What was the topic about?
This is item 7A, consider adoption of a resolution to extend the interim authority for the master fee schedule for fiscal year 2023-24.
Oh, I had my hand raised earlier for the whole sidewalk and newspaper situation. Is it okay if I still add on that?
It's coming back. He can speak.
Well, hold on real quick. So just so, and I'll look to the city attorney, we did ask for comments, and it is coming back to the city council. So it will be back on the August 22nd council agenda with additional information that was asked this evening. What you also can do is email the city clerk's office, and so those questions can be looked into. In addition, it can be disseminated to the city council. Is that okay, city attorney? Or?
Mayor Medina, your plan sounds fine.
Well, thank you. Okay, and so city clerk, if you can give the email, your email address.
The city clerk's email is cityclerk@sanbruno.ca.gov.
Thank you. Is there any other speakers on this topic?
There are no other remote answers.
Okay, this will be the last call for, it is a public hearing. Once we close the public hearing, we will not be going back to that. Any final call here at Senior Center? Oh, please, if you can come to the podium. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening. I just had a quick question. What was the original reason for the delay? Like, why wasn't this done on a schedule such that you didn't need the urgent interim stuff? Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming up to your question. Well, is there any other members from Zoom?
No other remote answers.
Okay, thank you. Is there a possibility we could just have a quick response, Director?
Yeah, so restating it to make sure I got it right, I believe the question was, why is it that this was done in a manner that we needed to do the urgency resolution and thus the extension? The fee schedule goes into effect 60 days after adoption, and there were reasons why, for staffing changeover and such, we were not able to bring the updated fee schedule package to council early enough that the 60 days would have ended up allowing the fees to go into effect on July 1. And when we calculated what the potential loss of revenue of those increased fees were, City Council made the judgment call that the urgency resolution was appropriate. So both council direction and staff intention is the next time there's an update to the fee schedule, it will be done in April so that the 60 days will be on July 1, and these two extra items would not have had to have happened.
Thank you. Any other last opportunity for any speakers? Seeing and hearing none, is there action from council to close the public hearing?
Through the chair, I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second? Motion Salazar, second Alvarez to close public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm hearing unanimous, 5-0. Public hearing has been closed. That will bring us back to council for consideration and or action.
Through the chair,
Councilmember Salazar.
if there's no questions on the topic, I will make the motion to adopt the resolution as stated.
I second.
Motion Salazar, second Alvarez. On this resolution, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it's a 5-0 vote, passed unanimously. And again, thank you, Director, for taking on this task. With that, we are going to move on to item 8, but before we move on to item 8, and because we have a study session right after, I'm going to ask that we take a break, maybe about 7 or 8 minutes, and then we take a recess and we'll reconvene to take on conduct of business. Thank you. All right, good evening. We are back from recess. We are on the San Bruno City Council meeting for July the 25th. We are on number 8, conduct of business.
Item 8A, consider appointments to San Bruno Community Foundation Board of Directors.
We held interviews for 4 positions. One is a unexpired term. We have 3 that their term is coming up. And so what I'd like to do is start off with the folks that are seeking reappointment. There were 3 that we interviewed, Raul, Jim, and Melissa. And those were the 3 that had done that. But before, and thank you, City Clerk, before we start to look at that and take action, we do have a speaker card. And so we'd like to, City Clerk.
We have a speaker, Jacqueline. Jacqueline, if you could come up.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of City Council. I do want to say thank you for including me as part of the process and also just be serving in the board, because I know your dedication really means a lot to us. I was hoping that you would consider some of my feedback in your consideration and some of the things that I see as needed on the next chapter of the foundation. So I am speaking as a board member of the San Bruno Community Foundation. Some of the things to know is that because RAC is coming to a close, we are coming into a new chapter, which means there's a lot of strategic planning and revisiting our listening campaign that was completed several years ago. And then what that would transpire in terms of all of the policy that will need to be amended as a result of that, including the investment policy as well as the investment operating plan. And so I'm going to talk about it as a whole, not just the incumbent. And I just wanted to say, because the rest of the board is fairly young, having the institutional knowledge is going to be critical in understanding what was the intent in the original campaign and what the plan would be, and then leading us into that next part of what would be best for the community, not just the foundation, but also in partnership with the council. The incumbents will actually be able to really guide us in that sense, and it will really help us. And all 3 of them have a huge pulse in the community that will really benefit the foundation. The other thing is that, as I mentioned, the investment policy and the investment operating plan will also need to be modified now that the RAC is done, and the 3 investment policy, pools need to be changed. Having someone who is financially astute is going to be very helpful in the investment committee, which I chair in. I also serve as the treasurer for the foundation. So those are really just my feedback. I hope you do take it into consideration in your decision tonight, and I know you will make the best decision for the foundation.
We very much appreciate your comments and staying this evening and serving with us when we were here earlier this evening. Any other comments from the public? Thank you. So bring it back to council. I'm going to go back. I'll do as I've done in the past. We have 3 folks that are asking for reappointment, and I'm going to make that as mayor to make a motion to reappoint the 3 incumbents to continue in a second term.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a seconded in regards to the 3 incumbents to be reappointed. Motion by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Salazar. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? It is unanimous. With that, we have an unexpired term, and we had very good qualified candidates and individuals that really have a passion and want to contribute to this community. I have the prerogative of going ahead and make a suggested appointment. What I am going to do is have it as the alternative method and have that open. So at this time, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask for nominations from the floor. It needs a motion or a nomination and a second to have it go to a vote. And I'll ask to say if there's any other Once I hear no more, then those will be the list of folks. So with that said, are there any nominations from the floor for the unexpired term?
Through the mayor?
Did you?
Go ahead.
No. No.
I'll let Tom.
I would like to nominate Belinda Wong.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other nominations? Do you have your line?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll
Councilman.
nominate Mr. Clifford.
I second.
Okay. Is there any other nominations from the floor? Seeing no lights, hearing none. So we have two individuals, and they will be read. We have two that the city clerk now will call us out in alpha order, with the vice mayor and the mayor being at the I was going to say the tail end, but yeah, at the end. So city clerk.
For Belinda Wong, Councilmember Alvarez.
No.
Councilmember Martin Medina.
Yes.
Councilmember Salazar.
Wow. I will say yes.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Hamilton.
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor Rico Medina.
Well, we have our three, so do we keep going? I think I was asking the city attorney earlier, but it's a first to get to three. So we don't go to the next person.
That's correct.
Okay. So then we would congratulate Ms. Wong. Correct, okay. Thank you, team. With that, we will go on to our study session.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just wanted to, and I think you did thank the people who did apply.
Please,
And
I would appreciate
I just
doing that.
wanted to take a moment to really say thank you for everyone that applied. It was really great seeing the interest, and I'm sure that everyone who applied, there's somewhere for everyone to help out in conducting the city's business, regardless if it's a community foundation. There are plenty of other boards, commissions that definitely could use your enthusiasm, and I just wanted to thank everyone for applying. It wasn't an easy decision.
Okay.
So I wanted to echo those comments as someone who participated in the process last time, along with Councilmember Salazar. I'm sure Councilmember Salazar would agree. Both times we had an embarrassment of riches in the folks who applied and the passion that they brought to it. And just as a reminder, not only does the city have boards and commissions, but the foundation has very important committees that do a lot of work, very important work for the foundation that may have openings. So I just wanted to point that out as well, and to again thank all of the applicants.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Please. Councilman Rico.
I wanted to echo what the vice mayor said. Yeah, we definitely in both processes had a lot of qualified candidates, and it was extremely difficult to try to narrow that down. And I also wanted to acknowledge that, I've always been a very strong proponent that the foundation should have input into this. So I wanted to thank Ms. Lynn for staying and offering her input in this. And I think that the recommendations were absolutely, I agree with you 100%. I wish we had more positions to assign, honestly, because I do agree with you that historical knowledge will be important going forward. And I nominated Mr. Clifford because of that, because of his involvement up to this point, and I hope he's not discouraged by the fact that he didn't get appointed and that he does continue in his existing role in advisory, because I know he has been a critical member in that organization.
Thank you to all for your additional comments, because I think it's important, and I think it's a blessing for all of us when we have to pause and wonder who, out of the talent of the pool that we had, of who to select, and want to acknowledge those that have served, have been reappointed. I think it's their stewardship from the Finance Committee to the board that have done a phenomenal job. And obviously, actions speak louder than words, and we can just look down the street to those actions. So I want to thank all of them. With that, we will now move to item 9, study session.
Item 9A, conduct a study session and provide feedback on economic development program.
Thank you very much. And we are pleased and happy to have our Economic Development Manager before us, and we look forward to your presentation.
Good evening, City Council, and thank you for having me here tonight. So my name is Maria Langbauer, and I'm the Economic Development Manager for the City of San Bruno. And the purpose of the study section is to receive Council's feedback on the Economic Development Program. More specifically, this is intended to start a conversation about what the Economic Development Program for the city could accomplish. San Bruno is largely a residential city that's uniquely located near the San Francisco International Airport and high-performing economic centers. The city has around 16,500 jobs and 24,000 employed residents. The ratio of jobs to employed residents is 0.68. Therefore, San Bruno is a net exporter of workers. Sales tax revenue to the city is estimated to be $12.7 million in the fiscal year 2023-24 operating budget. The San Bruno sales tax update report is attached to the staff report and shows the top 25 producers from San Bruno. Transit occupancy tax in the amount of 14% is collected in the cost of each room rental at each of the 12 lodging establishments in the city. This year's revenue is estimated to be $2.9 million. This tax revenue from business shows the importance of a strong local economy. So now I'm going to give you an overview of the history of the city's economic development program and key related initiatives. So starting back in the 1990s, the city has actively engaged in conversations regarding economic development and the need for implementing programs and staff. In 1997, the city adopted an economic development strategic plan. Then in 2009, the general plan with an economic development chapter was adopted. In 2013, the transit corridor specific plan was adopted, and in 2019, the San Mateo Avenue conceptual streetscape plan and downtown parking management plan were approved. In 2020, the city initiated work on the new Hyundai and Guinness dealership on a city-owned property that will be sold. In 2021, the Bay Hill specific plan and the Google YouTube Phase 1 project was approved. The city also initiated on the Temferan redevelopment project. And in April 2023, the city hired its first staff position dedicated to economic development, the Economic Development Manager. And since starting the position, the Economic Development Manager has initiated some focused economic development work and done outreach to the local businesses. So tonight, At the study session, staff will start a conversation about what the economic development program for the city could accomplish at a broad level. Should it focus on creating new jobs? Should it focus on vibrant communities, increasing revenue to the city, or facilitating new development? What else should it focus on that will enhance the city's economy? So there is a long list of reasons why communities should invest in economic development, as you can see in this picture. Fostering a range of business types helps to diversify the local tax base, strengthen the economy, and creates a successful community. As I mentioned in the opening, this study session is intended to start a conversation about what the economic development program for the city of San Bruno could accomplish. Staff seeking feedback from the City Council and the community on economic development topics to ensure that we are heading in the right direction. Now, I will step through a few different topics to initiate this conversation. The Council may identify other topics. I will step through the topics of job creation, businesses, community vibrancy, city revenue, and new development. Job creation. Economic development can focus on creating new jobs, different types of employment, or income in the community. For example, this new auto dealership opened in the former Sears building, creating different jobs. Businesses. It can focus on business creation, attraction, retention, and expansion. Vibrant communities. A vibrant community is a healthy, supportive, resource-rich environment that inclusively taps human, economic, and natural capital to thrive and grow together. A vibrant community can generate activity levels that will attract people to shop, dine, and visit. This would be throughout the city and not just in downtown. City revenue. Another area of focus can be increasing revenue to the city by bringing in new sales tax, property and transit occupancy tax, and other revenue. Facilitate new development. Additionally, economic development programs can focus on facilitating new development, including the redevelopment of a vacant or underutilized property. So with all that information that I gave it to you, my question is, what should be the focus of the economic development program for the city of San Bruno? Should it focus on creating new jobs? Should it focus on vibrant communities? Should it focus on increasing revenue to the city or facilitating new development? Or all? What else should it focus on that will enhance the city's economy? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from colleagues at this time on this, on the presentation?
I have a question on the
Oh, please.
Thank you. So I wanted to ask just about the, you started, toward the beginning of the presentation, you quoted some numbers regarding the number of jobs and the number of employed residents. Are those recent numbers? Because the reason that I'm asking is that the economic development element presentation that was provided in the staff report was pretty old. And that's not a criticism, because that just underscores how important it is that we revisit this now and get on with it. I just wanted to see where those numbers were sourced from and how recent they are.
They were sourced from the housing element.
Okay, thank you.
Report.
The newest housing element. Okay, great. So, okay, thank you. That addresses my question. Thank you.
Other questions at this time? City Manager?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, really quickly, I've had a chance to talk to each of you about this item that was coming up tonight, and really to echo what Maria has laid out. It's meant to be a conversation because we don't want to go too far down a path to find out we're going the wrong direction. We don't have a lot of resources to dedicate this, so we just really want to make sure we're taking the right next steps. One of the things I do want to caution the council on is we cannot do everything because we will fail. So please hear that message loud and clear. It's important that we hear general feedback from the council. And one more important note for tonight, we don't need answers tonight. We don't need one conclusion and off we're going to go. What we need to hear is just the conversation among you, and that we can help drive and provide feedback to you about why something might be a good idea, or maybe we need to take it back and come back to you in August or September with a more fleshed out idea. Like I said, we just want to make sure we're setting our resources in the right direction. And my final comment will be the things I'm going to encourage the council to consider has to do with what we can actually influence, what we can actually affect, rather than, wouldn't it be great if we got another YouTube here? Okay, sure, maybe. Or wouldn't it be great if YouTube got more jobs? I don't think that's really for us to be able to ever say if that ever happens. So just being mindful of those kinds of things as we brainstorm. There are no bad ideas. Put them on the table, let staff gather them all up, and we'll come back and sort of talk about what we think we heard. And it's also meant to plant seeds for each of you to hear from each other, so when we come back with this conversation again, you've heard from your colleagues and are starting to think through, you know, Councilmember Salazar had a great idea. Maybe we should flesh that out more because maybe you had never heard it before. So if I can, and I'd ask the mayor to really facilitate the conversation a bit to keep driving the conversation. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
No, thank you, City Manager, for putting it into perspective too. You know, as was asked of us, kind of in this context of the jobs, the vibrance, increase revenue, or facilitate new development. That's kind of what we're talking about. So we'll use the 4th of July. We're up in the drone looking at the community. We're not bringing the drone down on a spot in San Bruno. We're talking about it global so that our feedback, and the good thing is there are no motions. So this is just more of an open forum and dialogue, but to keep to that higher level so that when staff comes back, they kind of have heard a little guidance from us. But again, this is not the last time this conversation will be had. So with that, I'll see if any council members have some thoughts on the questions we were asked. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I'll start, sure. So I, you know, obviously the prompted goals are job creation, attracting business, or developing businesses, developing vibrant communities, increasing city revenue, facilitate new development. We're not limited to those, but those are a great starting point. The vibrant communities one on here, it's going to be no surprise to anyone listening or here that I'm a massive proponent of that. I guess my question is, I'm trying to marry up how I understand why it's part of economic development, because, you know, and we've talked about it, you know, when council, I get to take no credit because it was a prior council, approved the downtown streetscape back in 2019, I believe.
2019.
Yeah. You know, that's a plan that we have in place and awaiting funding. Would saying that we want to focus on that mean that that's the less stuff we can do that we focus less on these other things? Because, like, for example, city revenue was also something that no one's going to be surprised that I would champion. We need revenue in order to do things like the streetscape program. I'm just trying to figure out how to do all of it, and whether or not moving ahead with the streetscape and perhaps looking at some of the one-time monies that we have in place, and perhaps moving forward with that project. That's an incredibly important project. We heard public comments just tonight on how important it is for us to focus on our downtown. Is that something that we should start with? But I also don't want to make sure that we only focus on that.
So,
rambling statement, I apologize.
No, that's fine. This is a discussion. So I'm going to ask the city manager to chime in, but what I'm hearing is, like, we're talking about streetscapes, but I think what staff is asking is, like, go above that. And, okay, I'm going to throw out an example of mine. Okay, so the shops at Tanforan, they're transitioning. So jobs are being lost. Revenue is being lost. So in essence, are we saying we need to have additional revenue, and how do we bring in businesses that are going to help offset that for long-term commitments to our community? Are those jobs important? Well, maybe they are, maybe they're not. Are we talking about in the more high-tech biotech because of what may be coming? And so what are we trying to attract in our community in a broad base? And the city manager, help me in case I didn't.
No, I mean, that was great. And if I can go back to Councilmember Hamilton's question, I think it's not it's not one or the other, but maybe it's what is your priority? What should come first? What should follow, sort of thing. And if you're saying, hey, I think the downtown street or the streetscape plan is the most important thing, that's great. That's what we want to hear. It's exactly the kind of feedback we want to hear. But bearing in mind, it's also going to be at the cost of the other thing, whatever that other thing might be. Okay. We want to do everything. The resource is right there. Got one person, and we're all going to support her, but we have one person to do it. So let's set her up for success rather than just dilute her efforts so that we really struggle to really get the things done that we should get done. So great start, Mayor, great comments, and you guys are on a good roll, so I don't want to interrupt too much.
No, thank you.
I just want to ask a quick follow-up. So, no offense, but if for example we were to say yes, we want to go ahead with the streetscape, how much would Maria be working on the streetscape when it's mostly a public works project? I guess that's my question about just.
And can we leave that rhetorical for the moment? Because I don't have the answer, because it depends on what's in the streetscape plan that we would then start to prioritize even further. Are there other things that Maria could do to go out and work with some of the tenants and or the property owners to help us fund and or facilitate these efforts? How do we pay for all these things? I mean, there's a series of questions that will follow. Some of it will be coordinated by Maria. I understand Public Works will be technically building whatever it is we build for those enhancements or beautification efforts. But I think, the job will require a level of effort from, again, Maria works in our office, so from my office, so.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't see the light. Councilmember Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I want to thank staff for bringing forward these building blocks that we can start playing with it. In my mind, I don't see these things as being equal. And my vision for your role is very much a strategic position, a strategic thinker. And some of these concepts to me are just more, they're actual projects that need to get done. And I think they're all important in terms of, our priority in seeing those things get done. But how we get there, to me, is the real question, is what do we need to do at a very large level? We talked about, staying up at drone height, and heard from the city manager that we need to look at this really globally. And in some of the examples that were shown, a theme that I see, and something that I've seen both in academic studies and in case studies from other cities across the globe, is that the partnership with a private party and the government is really a winning formula. We've seen it with the Hyundai dealership. We found a good partner there for a property that had sat vacant for forever. and we were able to work with them to create a common vision, and that's a project that moved forward quickly. They were willing to move into a temporary location because of that partnership that we established early on, and so we're actually seeing revenue from that business far in advance of their full-scale development project that they'll be working on. And our partnership with Alexandria as well, where we had a vision that we put out there. We found a willing dance partner that was willing to work with us on that vision, and we're seeing that move forward. The Transit Corridors Plan is something that's been in place for a long time, and it was years in the making, tons and tons of community input, and that was the city's common vision for where we felt we should be moving forward. And the realization of that plan will enable us to do all of those other things that we would desire to do and that we've outlined as being priorities for us. So in my mind, activating that and having you work in a capacity that would further facilitate what we've put in place to make that vision come to fruition would be the most beneficial. We had a height limit ordinance that went into effect, and that was sort of the first step toward enabling that plan to come to move forward. But since then, not a lot has happened, and we had the aperture open at the end of San Mateo Avenue, and we were really hoping that that would be a catalyst for starting further development down San Mateo Avenue, and it didn't materialize. And I think we've learned some lessons from what we did there. Another thing that seems to continue to bite us is just our ability to get things approved, get things through the pipeline. And that is something definitely, I've seen improvement, and I know that there is a focus on that right now. But I think we need further, we need to do things a lot better there. And I think with the YouTube developments and their willingness to contribute to our ability to work with them financially, I think that has really helped that move along. But it did sort of drag along for a while until we came to those agreements, and then things started moving a little quicker. We were able to review plans, approve plans, and move things forward. We really need more of that type of cooperation, and we need to, like we did with Tanforan, create that global awareness of what's available here and what the city's plan is. And if we can sell that vision and find more partners that are willing to come here and work with us to really get things forward, I see that as critical and something that would be just invaluable if you could help us with that.
Thank you, Councilmember Salazar. Councilmember Medina.
I just want to acknowledge this is really great that we're talking about this. This is the first time in at least the 8 years on the council that we've gotten to this point, and having an economic development manager is a great part of that. Our city manager made an interesting comment like that we can't do it all. That's a fact. We can't do it all 100% successful, but we could do what we generally do in San Bruno. We do what we can with what we have. And clearly a lot of these things are tied in hand to hand, because if you have new development, you get new jobs, and you're improving businesses and vibrant communities. I think that is something that we're probably further along. I love our community. I think the diversity in our community is there's no more diverse community that I'm aware of. How do we get to do the things that our community really wants? And for a long time, it's basically we don't have the revenue to do those things, to build those things, to maintain those things, and to expand. But that's something that we're all interested in doing. And I'm, Mr. Mayor, just one more minute. The amazing thing, as
Mark,
we're,
you can take, you don't,
no, I know, but I want to get this really, this is important. And all of this is important, but the thing to acknowledge tonight as we appointed somebody to the San Bruno Community Foundation, as we're at 70% completion in our Recreation Aquatic Center, something long overdue, none of that happens without a tragedy. And let that sink in just for a little bit. If it wasn't for the explosion, we wouldn't be building a new rec center and having these scholarships. So we have a revenue problem. We started a comprehensive fiscal sustainability project from our previous city manager. We got it to some certain point. This is a pivot, perhaps, that we're going to see what we can do to implement those things while at the same point looking at how we're going to utilize this new, in baseball, they call it five skill set. And we're expecting, and what we have is one person. Okay, nonetheless, what are we going to do? How are we going to increase our revenues? Some of the development that's happening is being forced upon us. In the staff report, you mentioned the El Camino project. It wasn't on your slide, but there are 144 units, 146 units, I can't.
the 134 of the one.
134, yeah. Units that I think they broke ground. I see that they moved some dirt around, so I don't know if we're gonna have a breaking ground ceremony or they're gonna have a breaking ground ceremony, but the point is, it's starting to finally be San Bruno's time. And then as TANFRAN's going along. So with these 5 things, yeah, let's do them all, but we can't. So what of each of those, how much could we do, right? The job creation, I don't think that's really our forte. We have created more jobs in the city for our staff to do more of the work that needs to be done because we have now revenue streams that allow us to do that. So if job creation, if I was going to rank them, that's something that we're not really going to immediately be able to impact that. That's out of our strength and out of our direct responsibility. And the businesses, I look at it 2 ways. There's bringing a new business in, which is great, but it's also very important to take care of the businesses that are here. That ties in directly to downtown. And downtown, at least for me, and the council, we've been supporting it. I don't think we've been doing a good enough job letting our community know all the things that are happening to our downtown, that we just, again, need the revenue to do it. So increasing city revenues, I would be interested in hearing from staff, like what you kind of seen in this little bit amount of time, your experience, what you could suggest to us. I know this is for us to talk about, but it's also getting a chance to get a little bit of information from you. And the facilitating the new development, we've seen here in San Bruno that projects get entitled and then they get stuck, and now we're dealing with increased construction costs and higher interest rates. And it's not only in San Bruno. I think there's been a couple larger projects in San Mateo, and I can't remember another one that the councils had to vote to extend the permit, give them permit extensions. So I've spoken enough now. I think that as we continue discussing what the things that we do best and how to make things better, and how to TANFRAN probably was the best example, but there's only so much space that has a TANFRAN. There's one TANFRAN, and right now there's only one YouTube. It'd be great, but based on our needs of our city and the revenues, we need a couple Tan Frans and at least another YouTube to pay the $300 million of unfunded capital improvement projects that we need. So I've spoken enough. I'd like to hear from the rest of my colleagues, but I really, really appreciate this start. So thank you very much.
Okay. Other Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of my visions is for you to be the liaison between the business owners and the other agencies out there. I think in order for our community to be vibrant is to offer our support, because not a lot of businesses, especially in the San Mateo Avenue area, knows about other grants out there. And I think we need to help them find that grant and chase them in the right time, just so they can also help improve the facade of their businesses, and not the city taking responsibility for the cost. I think it's a partnership between, if the business owners want to see the community vibrant, it's not just a one way. And I think it's for you to basically work with them and convince them that it's a partnership between the city and the business owners. And we can only help. Especially if we have a limited fund to go towards that streetscape, and I'd like to see that move forward as well. And I think it's going to help that the downtown area look more vibrant. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
I have some follow-ons to some of the other comments, but I also don't want to go out of turn. So
You're not out of turn. But if it's on that, I'd like to get, because I'm going to kind of summarize what I'm hearing, and then I'm going to make a suggestion based on what I'm hearing. But go ahead.
okay, so I just wanted to.
Because you really didn't have the opportunity at first. You were just asking no.
Sure. So I want to. So I have some comments on what Councilmember Medina said, and on building on what Councilmember Salazar said. I'll go with Marty's first because it's quicker. When we were talking about job creation and how that's not necessarily in our wheelhouse or within our control, I think the job creation would be a natural byproduct of facilitating new development. If we facilitate new development, we facilitate, especially if it's office space or other commercial uses, then the jobs will follow. So I think it's just a probably very obvious observation. Michael, you mentioned we got Aperture built, and it was hoping that was a catalyst for future development down the avenue that didn't materialize. I think we all recognize that one of the problems that we have in San Bruno, not just on San Mateo Avenue, but throughout San Bruno, is that San Bruno is a collection of tiny parcels. It's like, and all with different owners. And so what I would like to see is as part of economic development and as part of trying to facilitate new development, is to work to identify property owners, especially on San Mateo Avenue, bring them together and sell them on the fact that if they work together to piece together a larger property, because it's not like there's any huge vacant lot sitting on San Mateo Avenue or huge unoccupied building that can become some large multi-use property. So work to identify those property owners, bring them together, sell them on the fact that if they work together, it could be a really lucrative opportunity for them, and it's a total win-win because we can end up with a larger, vibrant project downtown. And and also use that same anywhere else. Use the same technique anywhere else. Yep.
So I'm trying to take some notes of what everyone's saying, and I think job creation is important. I'm going to give you an example. If we remember, there was a Costco in San Bruno. Well, that went out of business. I'm sorry, definitely didn't go out of business. They moved, and now there's 3 in South San Francisco. And they moved because it didn't have the space, and they went to the gas pumps and whatever. I didn't want to scare everybody that, don't go to Costco tomorrow. But the point of it is there was a large vacant facility which the city worried about. What happens now? We lost all those jobs and we lost all that revenue. Well, and I know the history, it's before I was on the council, there was staff and others that kind of collaborated, and Lowe's came in, which was a huge plus. Jobs now were recreated, and our ongoing sales tax was recreated. That's important. We have Best Buy that we were kind of happy when that moved in because of the sales tax. Well, that's been vacant. So I see that as a creation. Can we find a business that wants to come in there that creates jobs and creates a revenue to the city? And I think that's where I think staff is looking for us to say at a very global perspective. I know I'm hearing streetscapes in this, but we're talking about in a city. To me, it's a large facility that Best Buy, I wish, could get occupied. And that would create jobs, and that would create revenue. I think the Hyundai dealership is something that Councilmember Salazar said, as far as just look at that vacant lot that's next to Jack's, giving them a plug, had sat for over a decade. Nothing, not a penny to us, money out of pocket. And yet it's been now moving forward. But what was more ideal is, oh my gosh, across the street you had Sears, and they have a service unit which they're using to service vehicles, and they have a huge opportunity in which they're selling cars. It brought jobs. Not only are they doing well, they're doing better than they have been their goals set for. When I went there, when they had a kind of a grand opening. That to me is looking at global of these partnerships of how we can bring that in. And I think, and it's no disrespect to anybody, past, present, or future, that we haven't had a position in place to take limited resources and then try to say, okay, how can we bring it forward? How can we encourage those to come in? And I think that's really what staff is looking for to that. I think the pipeline element is something too, because we hear, we're moving through the process, things happen, and okay, how come we're stifled? How come we look to our north and our south and there's all this development, but yet we stay still? And I think the community sometimes asks that. What's happening? Can't you see it on both sides? You see it every day, but why is it not happening here? I know there's parts of the community that would wish it stayed just like it is, but if we want to continue services to this community and improve what we have and build for our future, then we need those combinations. So I think job creation is important. I think development would bring those opportunities. I think it also, we have RENA numbers to meet, which means housing, which means with housing are folks that need services. And I think those are some things that I think are, we need some strategic element to that. I mean, YouTube, great, and they've expanded and we've got community benefits from that, and that's fine. We know that we're gonna open up Sneath Lane. I know that's at another end of the town, but also we have a huge project that is going to be there. And they're going to be looking for somewhere to go, maybe to do, and it's not gonna happen overnight, may not happen for years, but we didn't sell the vacant lot that was supposed to be a hotel for a decade. Don't wanna wait that long. But I think what staff is kind of looking for is, I'm hoping that I've offered some of my remarks that say at a high level what I'm looking about throughout the community. And I think those are some of the elements that I wish to bring forward. Other additional thoughts or comments? We'll go around the room one more time. Mr. Medina.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have a number of parking lots downtown. City owns them outright. How do we partner with adjacent property owners? How do we put out the word that we're looking for a developer to kind of assess how buildable a project would be? We hear often, well, does it pencil out, right? Well, we need that person to kind of talk to the development community and go, well, with these parking lots, what would it take to build that? And it's not just the pressure to provide it, but it's also to grow our community, right? Housing prices are still sky high. San Bruno is still probably nowhere is really affordable anymore, but San Bruno is not as expensive as many other cities. So do we look at potentially doing some zoning changes? Do we look at potentially expanding height limits? So the different ideas, and this is the first night. We're not gonna solve it tonight, but I think the feedback that we get back from staff of like, well, what is the best thing that our skills that our staff has to do? It's kind of like when I'm going to pull back on a baseball analogy. You look at the team that you have, you look at the staff that you have, and it's like, well, who's going to play short, right? Well, that person could do that. Well, who's going to lead off? What are the skills that our staff has to bring back to look at these things that we should do? I think one of the best things that we ever did was reaching out to the during TANPRAN is being proactive and putting out a fact sheet of what the city is entertaining there. And we fortunately were able to land a very skilled developer that hopefully is going to be able to come through. So those areas, as well as for the things that we've already kind of discussed before, like short-term rentals, like we've haven't seen really that position being fully staffed, or was going to go out to a consultant to do it. We got a couple agreements in place, but there are properties that are being rented out that we're not getting the TOT on, because perhaps they're not interested in registering, and nobody's ever told them you need to register your property. I'll stop there. At some point, Mr. Mayor, I would love to hear Maria's thoughts from an idea, because none of us here on the council have that expertise, right? So
I'm gonna say I'm not gonna put her on the spot. I think tonight is for us to convey to staff so they can take some of that information back and try they're giving us clay. They're gonna come back and try to mold that clay into something and bring it back to us for us to say, yeah, that was what my vision was of that product. It won't be fired. It won't be put in the kiln yet, but it will be that. But I am going to ask the city manager to say, have you heard enough? I'm going to tell you, I'm taking notes, and if we ended the meeting right this second, I will tell you, I don't know that staff has enough to come back to mold the clay, in my opinion.
A couple of things, if I can, Mr. Mayor and Council. We do have some more information than we had an hour ago. So that we are better now than we were an hour ago, first of all. Second of all, and if I can piggyback on Councilmember Medina's comment, something I was going to provoke the council with. And one of the questions I would ask of you is, how bold do you feel? Councilmember Medina said something about height limits. We have a voter-imposed height limit in our community, but for the corridor or whatever. But you have a voter, so how bold are we feeling to say, are we going to go so far as to ask the community to reverse the height limitation in the city? It's a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer the question. But it's how bold do you want to go? And a comment I think Councilmember Salazar made, which was very important, is this idea of a catalytic next steps. What's the thing we do that builds the next thing? And the question about the aperture, I'll find out what happened with it. I'm still not 100% sure. And again, tonight's not the night. And I will tell you, I learned something shocking tonight. We had a Costco, and we let it go? What?
I'm sorry.
Price, same. Okay.
But it's similar. But it wasn't that I think we let them go. I think it was they needed more space and et cetera.
Okay, but those are the kinds of things I think an economic development effort can get in there and try to figure out, say with Costco at the time, or Price Club at the time, as they were saying, whatever they were saying, is how do we keep the businesses that are working here, how do we keep them so they don't leave us? I think that's an important retention, which is the term, right? So, I mean, again, there's a lot of sort of issues out here. One of the questions I would just have of the council is how bold would you want to go? And don't answer it tonight. Just think about that as to what might I even be asking. Because there are tools in the toolkit that are generally forbidden for use. We're not supposed to use them, but they're there. So the question is, you have a bunch of small lots. Well, what do you do with all those lots? You assemble them. How do you assemble them? There are ways. They're not popular. How bold would you go to realize your vision? So, and if I can, 2 more comments. And some of you know I was down in the southern part of the county for many years and left. And when I came back, and I'm going to give a compliment to our neighbor now, I was flabbergasted in a positive way about South San Francisco. Just flabbergasted how much they had done, how much, and that had to be a 20-year vision. And I don't know the details. I don't know what happened, but Oyster Point is something that I don't even recognize. To the good. I mean, for my opinion, to the good. Maybe the citizens of South San Francisco don't like it. I don't know. But wow, someone made some bold moves and some bold gestures. And I'm guessing the redevelopment agencies were a part of that, to help move along whatever they moved along. I do remember when they put the overpass in, thinking, overpass to what? Well, now that's the answer to the question. Again, how bold do we want to go? And the last theme I want to remind the council about, and you guys have all lived here for so long, and I think you maybe take it for granted, is the whole transportation piece of our city. And we have the freeways, major freeways. You've got the historic El Camino. You have 2 train stations and that little thing called the airport. That's big stuff. A lot of cities can't brag about that. How do we brag about that? How do we leverage that? How do we turn that into our catalytic, that was the wrong word, catalytic, sort of effort. Again, these are the kinds of questions I would ask. How bold would we want to go? That's the drone flying way up here, not necessarily down on the ground. So I just want to leave you with those thoughts. You don't have to say anything tonight. I'll probably come back to you one-on-one again and sort of nudge you a little bit and find out what new ideas might pop out from this. We can come back. I think we do have some good information as a start, and I can start to tease this out a little bit more. I will say one of the jobs that Maria has been doing is starting to build those relationships in the community, which is we have to build the trust. I mean, that's everything. And we have to be men and women of our words to basically say, if you come to our city, here's what we're going to be able to do for you appropriately and legally. I'm not suggesting we do anything wrong, but we have to follow through then. We have to deliver on what we're promising. And when we fail to deliver, that's part of our brand. We can't deliver. So I think I think we do have a lot of here, Mr. Mayor, if you'll allow me. I mean, I think we can go back and start playing with this and then bringing it back to the council again. So I will. You're all looking at me like I've.
No. They're just letting me know that the vice mayor said he had something quick he wanted to say. He wanted to let me know.
So I just want to make, and this is probably one of those things that's super obvious anyway, but I'll say it anyway, is that I don't want us to ever be afraid to copy. We have, you brought up South City. The mayor also brought up that, that our neighbors are doing this successfully. One of the examples that I'm just using it as an example that Marty brought up of the city lots, Burlingame's done that at least twice successfully, partnering with a private developer to develop a city parking lot and figuring out how to keep public parking at the same time. So all these things have been accomplished successfully right here in the region, and we should not be too shy to go and copy those things and learn from our neighbors.
Councilmember Medina?
I agree with that. One of the 3 catalytic sites in the transit corridor plan was the Caltrans station. It's publicly owned land. It's not being utilized very well. It's never full. But I would think that would be one obvious, why haven't we talked to them about getting that site developed? So I'll leave that, because it was one of the 3 things that was in the transit corridor plan.
And I appreciate the city manager, because I think that's truly what we really have to be able to communicate, come to a decision, and stand by. And that means whether it's zoning, whether it's height limits, whether it's trying to encourage little parcels to get together to have some future. There's other opportunities, but nobody wants to touch that, and I understand why. But I think that is truly that. I'll go back, we can't do everything. That is impossible. And I think realistically, to any staff person or any department or any individual to say, okay, well, if we do 10% here and 10% here, we're not going to have success. This council needs to come forward with staff's support and help and recommendations, but really you needed to hear it from us. And so the manager is saying he has enough to take the clay and mold it, and I will say, okay. But I think in the one-on-ones I would encourage to kind of give that flavor of, are you talking about you want us to rezone an area? That may not go over well. Do you really want us to put on the ballot about the zoning or the height limits? How will that be affected, and the time that it will take for an election? Are you talking about other elements, the TCP? I mean, that went to the vote of the people long ago. And so, however, when these developments, which some are out of our control because it's under state law, we're going to start hearing, like, how could you? Well, A, it was voted on by the people for the TCP. That's how they're doing it. And 2, they can bypass us on like parking requirements because of what the state legislature has done. So I think we need just to inform and let folks know that. But I think your concluding comments I appreciate. And I also want to thank you very much for standing there and listening to us and not having anything back to say or throwing anything at us. So I appreciate that, and you taking everything in. We are excited to have you with us and to have you here. This is a topic that has been spoken about a long time, and it was having the resources, but it was getting a person in the position. And so we have you. And so we as a council, I'll speak for all of us as the mayor, we look forward to what will be brought back for us so that we can plan for this city's future. So thank you for your presentation and your time. And as that, I want to see if there's any members of the public that are here to see if they wish to have any comments that are here or via Zoom. We'll bring the first speaker up since you're here, and then we'll see if there's anybody in Zoom. Please.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be participating tonight. My name is Thomas Joseph. I live in the southern edge of District 3 near Cappuccino High School. Great topic tonight, and I'm so glad you guys have hired Maria to, in this new role for the city. We talked a lot about what might come in the past. We even discussed the history of newspapers. But I think San Bruno is a great place to live. And there's some things, and I'm so glad the city manager mentioned them, that are always going to be true. We have the 101, the 280, and the 380, a great crossroads for commuters. We have 24,000 workers, 16,000 jobs in the city. We have SFO, we have the BART station and the Caltrain, and I think really it says a lot that maybe we should focus at what we're good at, and maybe that is being housing for people to live in. People like me who would love to start a family with my wife and establish roots maybe in this city for the long term. So unbeatable location when it comes to transportation, and also when it comes to the weather, as the rest of the country gets really, really hot in the last few weeks. We've been staying at a perfect 68 degrees for forever, it seems. So anyway, when it comes to growth, I would be really curious about the impact of work from home, right? If work from home is going to be a growth area for jobs and it's going to be here to stay, then building more residential units goes hand in hand with that. If we only have small parcels left, building residential units seems to go hand in hand with that for me. If we're trying to, again, go for growth, and I'm biased here because I work in biotech, but when it comes to Oyster Point, Tan Fran, I've heard there's developments coming in Burlingame and St. Carlos. We could be a great commuter residential area for people to do the mix work from home 3 days a week in the office kind of thing. So when it comes to the top 5, obviously I love all the discussion on development, but I'm big on vibrancy of community, attracting people that want to live here and spend money here, right? So when it comes to the sales tax and the occupancy tax, if SFO is there, how full are our hotels? You know, what's the rate? Can we turn that 3 million into 5 million or 9 million over the next however many years? And then I'd also be curious for that sales tax, the spread across restaurants, retail stores, and even home deliveries. You know, how much of an impact does the Amazon of the world have on our sales tax earnings here? So for Maria, please advertise San Bruno. I hope you know exactly how many open parcels there are in the city. Advertise and make it easy to come here, make permitting easier for them. And then also, are we, looking out for state and federal money? Thank you, Councilmember Alvarez, for talking about grants. It seems like there's plenty of investment from the state and the Biden administration, and we should be seeking that money. Thank you all. It's crazy that you guys do this monthly. 7 to 10 is quite the schedule.
We started at 5:30, but we appreciate you being here, and thank you for your comments, and thank you for staying with us. So we appreciate the company and your comments. Thank you very much. Again, Maria, go right ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. So I think there was a lot of good information shared during this particular session about economic development. I think as a business owner and a resident, as we mentioned earlier, there's plenty of opportunity to accomplish all of the 4 or 5 topics that were brought up by Maria: new development, increased revenue, develop new business, and beautify downtown as one of them. I'm sure there's other parts of the city that could also benefit from beautification. If you look at some data points, 180,000 passengers passed through SFO last year. If you think about that, 42 million people went through SFO, and there was an opportunity for those passengers to potentially visit our city, spend money in our city. So I think here is the comment I want to make is I hope we don't have another or more missed opportunities, because I think if we were to pick any one of those 4 or 5 things to start on or prioritize, which Maria was asking the council, what do we think as a council and as a community should we focus on? There's always going to be somebody who's not going to agree or is going to oppose one of the priorities that the council and the community selects. It's part of life, but I think it's important that we start somewhere, whether it's new businesses, new development, any one of those. But I think we just got to start somewhere and actually put some muscle behind it and actually accomplish something, instead of starting something, spending all this money to do a study, a beautiful 100-page report, but not actually take action. I think, and that's what, as residents and business owners, we're looking for, is actually taking action and seeing it to completion or some resemblance of it. So I wanted to pause there. I do know that my business partner and wife also wanted to add some comments. So if we can add maybe another 3 minutes, that would be great. Thank you.
Can we reset the clock for the next speaker, please?
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I wanted to thank Maria for all the efforts that you have been doing to, number one, get to know us business owners. I'm not asking to boil the ocean because that's, I mean, I've only been on San Mateo Avenue for a good year. And I am very pleased to say that business is well and very well received by my community. However, it is important for, I think, for each and every one sitting as council to at least walk downtown, introduce yourself to us. We have tried and reached out several times, and we're lucky if one or two of you will pop up and say, hello, yeah, we've received your message. My point is, for us to grow together, we have got to get to know each other. And we hear it all the time, business owners. Like I said, I've only been there for a year. And the number one thing that I hear from my community is, you know, thank you, Jay. Thank you for bringing new business here. And we were just wondering, for example, what happened? What happened with the community fair? That was so huge. That was so huge for the community to get to know us business owners, and so that they can see what we can offer our everybody. That was pulled away from us this year. I have encouraged customers to hop on and chime in when there's council, because we can't just, I always tell them, they cannot just hear it from us. They have to hear it from everybody that lives in this neighborhood. We have so many people that live here that they don't even know the type of businesses downtown because there's nothing for them. It's not inviting enough. So no matter what we do, facade or not, we need support. We need to get to know you guys. You can't, you know, to walk downtown and say, hi, hello, I'm council so-and-so. That's important, because we're not gonna get anywhere if we don't start something, you know? We can't just talk about it. We have to be about it. Again, I thank you very much for your time, Maria. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for reaching out to us. That really means a lot. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you both for your comments, and you have a good night as well. Any other speakers? Thank you. Please, you sat with us. Come right on up. No, take your time.
I normally don't speak in these things. I don't know how this thing goes, but I want to thank Maria. I met her. I'm actually the business manager of one of the businesses downtown. And you guys have mentioned me a bunch of times today. I'm not going to mention the business because I'm here independently. No, I'm not. But I'm the property manager, and yes, I'm sitting on 7,000 square feet of empty retail space. So you guys can figure out which property I manage. So I think for me, the thing is, it's not just working with the community, and we talk a lot of talk, but it's also, I hope she's an ambassador for us, because I know we mentioned our business as a failure. Our business is not a failure. We're 95% occupied in the residential part. The retail is a failure because every time we propose a business, this council, I'm not saying you guys, I'm not trying to be personal, has voted against that business. So hopefully she can be an ambassador for us, but also understand the needs of the community. Also, sometimes when we have a vision, like a city council, we maybe want this kind of business in this community. Sometimes that might not be feasible, but sometimes to make the community vibrant, we have to work with what we have. And, you know, I know that recently Whole Foods was voted down, and, you know, but eventually these developers are going to come into this community, and thanks to new tax laws, I mean, not tax laws, but new laws, they're going to develop the buildings that we may not want. So sometimes it's better to have somebody like her be an ambassador that's going to help us kind of maybe not get what the city council wants, but maybe something that still is going to contribute to the community. I mean, I go to the restaurant that the city council many years ago voted down multiple times, and it's a very vibrant restaurant. It's about 7,000 square feet, and I'm still sitting on 7,000 square feet of vacant retail space because we didn't feel it was the right restaurant for the community. But instead of us working together, we're pushing away sometimes restaurants. We're pushing together sometimes away businesses. I, being the only brand new development in the city, I get all these developers that come visit my property all the time. And they often say that they think San Bruno is an amazing location. We have amazing employers, and there's a lot of money here. But they feel when they work with the city, it's often just, no, 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 this is not what we want here. So if we don't help, so hopefully she could be the person that helps say, yes, this is maybe not what we want here, but this is what's realistically going to happen here. Like when you're sitting on 7,000 square feet, realistically, a small restaurant's not going to go there because they can't afford to put the sewage, they can't afford the electrical. So sometimes we might have to work with big companies or bigger restaurants or bigger businesses that we might feel are not the right one for downtown San Mateo Avenue. But my hope is, and I met her a few times, she's toured my property, she's awesome, so I'm hoping she also is a voice, an advocate for us, like an ambassador. Hey, yeah, we may not want this restaurant here, but realistically now we're sitting on 4 years of empty retail space when it could have been occupied years ago. So, anyways, those are my 2 cents. Thank you.
We appreciate your comments and appreciate your time. Any other speakers?
Yes, next speaker is Josh and Sedena. Josh and Sedena, whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Hi, it's Sedena again at Twice as Nice. I just wanted to jump on again as well and thank Maria for coming in and taking time to get to know us, to hear us, and hopefully she can help us solve some of the issues and the problems that we've brought to her attention. And to kind of speak on what Councilwoman Alvarez said about the businesses reaching out and utilizing the grants to fix the facade, I would like to ask that maybe the city also sort of could help us in fixing some of the pots downtown, and if we can put trees back in them. I noticed that on the graph that Maria used, some of the trees were in the pots, and it looked beautiful. I think that we need to focus on a more vibrant downtown and creating that community to bring people downtown to visit, to come back and want to be a part of the downtown. And I just feel like if we can focus on that, we could all work together. I know we're very excited to have Maria, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next speaker? Okay. Again, thank you. Thank you to the folks that have stayed and made comments, and thank you for being here tonight at the meeting. With that, we're going to move on to item number 10, Council Committee report outs. Do we have any? Mr. Hamilton. Vice Mayor, sorry.
So I have a quick report out from last week. On July 20th, I attended the Board of Directors meeting for the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency, or BOSCA. And quick update, still have a lot of water. Hetch Hetchy is 100% full, and it's still releasing. Total system storage of all the reservoirs in California is at 89.2%, and the snowpack is still melting. It's we're approaching the end of July, and we still have snow. It's unfortunate to see a lot of that water flowing by and heading into the ocean. Yes, we're practically full up on capacity. We spent a good portion of our meeting receiving a report from the SFPUC of their draft alternate water supply plan, and this is a very long-term plan going to 2045, looking at ways to address the forecasted gap between available water during dry years and all of our needs. And that, so the plan included, and the discussion included, the fact that this body, the BOSCA, is going to need to decide by 2028 whether to make Santa Clara and San Jose permanent members. Currently, they're both what they call interruptible members, meaning that if in a severe drought, they can be turned off. And because both Santa Clara and San Jose get water from other sources besides Hetch Hetchy. So, but they obviously want to be permanent members, and but we need to, we have to decide whether that's feasible by 2028. Also talked about implementing some new projects, including expanding storage capacity in the Los Vaqueros and Calaveras reservoirs, expanding the use of recycled water, and considering developing a fund to support local city-level projects to help reduce demand through further conservation. Overall, the current plan that's in place will improve what they call dry year reliability, but it doesn't eliminate it, and there is still a gap in if we fast forward to 2045 without doing anything, there would be gaps. So the final version of this plan is expected to be presented to the SFPUC in November. And then one other huge uncertainty are our regional, the RENAs, the regional housing elements, because the demand projections don't take into consideration all this new housing that's being demanded by the state. The process, the RENA process, and neither the RENA process nor the allocations that we get through ABAG take water into account at all. So that obviously is going to need to be addressed in some way. So that's my report out. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for report outs? For me, I'll try to make it real quick. On July 12th, I had a Board of Directors Samtrans meeting, and the good news is the ridership continues. It's 20% higher than it was at this time last year. So where a lot of the transportation avenues have obviously still are not rebounding, Samtrans seems to be on its way. So that is a positive for that organization. On July 14th, I served on an interview panel for the county for the emergency management director. There were 3 electeds, 2 supervisors, and myself for San Bruno as the regional representative and the vice chair. So I was honored to be a part of that, and that was our candidates will go up to the county executive manager for a possible appointment. On the 18th for Caltrain Citizen Advisory Committee, and the 20th for the Transportation Citizen Advisory Committee. And each of these bodies have citizen from anywhere from the county that can serve on those and apply. There are still recruiting and vacancies, and so I put that to any member of the community to just please go to the Caltrain or the Transportation Authority websites, and the applications are there and can apply. It's always nice to get a cross-section, and sometimes we don't always have a San Bruno on the Citizen Advisory Committee, and they do make input, and they do have some information that comes up to us as a body before we make those decisions. So I just encourage folks to get involved. It does matter. With that, with none else, we will move on to item 11, council comments from council members. This morning, I welcomed from Germany the
Westerstede, Germany.
Thank you. The vice chairman was going to help me because today. Thank you, Tom. So the last time we had it, and it was the AYSO 249 U19 team that came out here, and there were 22 total folks, which included players as well as obviously chaperones. And I had an opportunity on Saturday when they drove in from Tahoe, which they were in LA prior, to meet and greet about 10, and then today I officially met all. And 2018 was the last time that they were here. This is a program that has started back in 1981, and so they were excited to be back, and they were leaving City Hall to go get a tour of Stanford and to go shopping. So they have already been out here a couple weeks and will be here till the end of the month. So I thank the council that was there and attended, and thank staff for all that they did to make our welcome possible. And I think I'll just keep going. I wanted to say on the council comments, I want to thank for another successful year of the Dale Wilson 4th of July tournament. And San Bruno did well in winning each one of the divisions in its championship on that day. It was a San Bruno day, so the sun was out and San Bruno shined. On July 5th, I want to officially, for the record, that there was a delegation that left for Narita, Japan. This is the first time we've had a delegation since 2019. First time an elected has gone, and we're trying to find out when, but it may go back to 05 or 04. So I think it was to rekindle and restart that engagement and that we've had for 33 years, and to replant what we have had, what we are doing. But what we are going to do is, thanks to Jennifer Dianos and all the work that she did, we're going to have a debriefing of the delegation this Friday, and we're going to be presenting to the City Council on August 22nd, and so you'll have a full report at that time. And I do want to acknowledge that on July 18th, I attended, again with many colleagues, and was allowed to speak, which I appreciate, to the San Bruno Police Department swearing in, and be with the families and those that are been promoted, laterals, new, and the work they do. And I do appreciate all that they have done and what they do each day. And with that, are there any other council comments? Vice Mayor. Yes, and thank you for reminding me. So also this Saturday, thank you, Tom, there will be a open to anyone, and it's 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. It is on San Bruno Avenue, I think 540 San Bruno Avenue, Masra. We've had State Senator Jesh Becker there. It is going to be Assembly Person Diane Pappin, who will be doing a coffee. I think this is her second one since she took office, and so we're fortunate to have that opportunity. Overflow parking is at St. Bruno's parking lot, because obviously parking can be a little congested there, and I appreciate Vice Mayor reminding me. Vice Mayor.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Remind everyone that this Saturday from 8:30 to 11 at the American Legion is the monthly pancake breakfast. Highly recommend coming down and getting a good breakfast, and you'll be right around the corner from the event that the mayor just told us about. So you can fill up on pancakes and then go talk to our assembly member about concerns in the region. So that's at the American Legion, Post 504 on San Mateo Avenue this coming Saturday.
Councilmember Medina.
It's the best breakfast in town. It really, really is very good. And it's a great cause for our veterans. Tomorrow at Bel Air Elementary School, 453rd Avenue, in partnership with the Second Harvest of Silicon Valley, we're having a grocery distribution. These numbers have increased as our need in our community has increased. From 200, I believe it was a little over a year ago, we're now at 280 families that do come to Bel Air between the hours of 2 and 4 o'clock. We're a little short on volunteers. So if you have an hour, half an hour to spare, and you want to really help people in need, I definitely encourage you to show up. So that's at people that need food, they can sign up on the spot. The other thing I want to mention is there was a summer pop-up downtown on Saturday with over 15 small local vendors. And this was put on by the Bay Area Entrepreneurial Center in our downtown at 458 San Mateo Avenue. They will continue to do others. And I wanted to acknowledge and thank Leah and Olivia for an amazing day in our downtown. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Is there any comments, since we did have an item listed under council comments, any members of the public on that topic of the West Germany? Thank you very much. With that, thank you to all the staff. Thank you to the members of the public that are here and that have spoken this evening. And with that, and thank you to my colleagues. With that, the next regular City Council meeting will be held on August the 22nd, 2023 at 7 p.m. Meeting is adjourned.